Tas TV in Bob Gormley. How are you, Bob?
Very well, thanks, Ray. And
good game?
It was a good game, yes.
Yeah.
It was highlighted by some very good aerial duels, particularly in the rucking division between Robert Dutton for Launceston and Evans for North Launceston. Dutton was probably the only ruckman all day that was able to get clear taps in his position. But to start it off with, North Launceston took full opportunity of their power drive from the centre, where Chris Whitford was on top all day, and he ended up having a very good battle with Francis Woolley. They probably had as many possessions as each other, but Chris Whitford was able to do more with the particular opportunities that he got, and he capitalised on this and was able to get it to his forwards, where Neil Maynard was at his best, played a very good game and ended up with 5 goals. Ricky Young was a very good player for them in the first quarter, and he capitalised by getting a couple of goals.
In fact, in that first quarter, it was North's little men that brought the ball away from the centre on countless occasions that they dominated play, didn't they, when they kicked those 6 goals?
They did. They looked a far better side to me when they ran onto the ground. They looked a keener side than what Launceston did, and I felt that Launceston looked as though they looked a bit dead in the legs, as though they'd had a very hard training session during the week, and North's players, even from the half-back line, where John Hill was a good player at centre half-back, seeing there kicking the ball, and always kicked well to position and up to the forward line. Todd Lewis for Launceston started off at centre half-back, and it seemed to me as though he's not the sort of player that should be a centre half-back. He's more of an opportunist and an attacking player, and I feel that he should be more used as a centreman or a ruck rover or on the forward line somewhere.
Without Dutton, who gave Launceston 4 great quarters, they could have been in trouble, the Blues, even earlier.
Certainly, that's for sure, because Dutton was supreme in the air. He took about 16 marks for the day, probably half a dozen of those in the last quarter when he was shifted to centre half forward, and his aerial dominance was a great factor for Launceston, even though they didn't win the game. But I felt that North Launceston looked a far better team on the day. They kicked the position better. They used the ball better. Launceston fumbled a lot when they were going for the ball. North Launceston was surer in everything that they did, and they had good players, good young players in Whitford, as I said before. Darren Harper at centre half forward, he's got a big future in front of him, this boy.
I thought his duel with Todd Lewis was a good one, even though Lewis was far more experienced player and probably won on the day. Harper still created many opportunities for his side, didn't he?
Because he moved around. And,
certainly.
Darren, you know, he's got a big future, as we said, and he moved the ball around and always kicked it up to the forward line in a good kick, where Neil Maynard was able to make good opportunities of it.
In fact, North's half-forward line, particularly Norquay, who's able to create a loose man on that half-forward line, he also created a lot of opportunities for himself in that first half.
Yes, I feel that all day the North Launceston centre half-forward line was well on top of Launceston's half-back line, and this is where it all counts. And especially with Shane Young on the wing doing so well for the whole 4 quarters, they were getting that continual drive all day.
The rucking duels, as you say, Dutton probably won in the ruck all day and around the ground, but young Evans and Pritchard contested pretty well.
Yes, well, when Dutton went off the ball, Pritchard and Evans were able to get first use of the ball for the North Launceston Rovers, and especially Ricky Young and Sasha Atkins, they just dominated their particular rolling duels all day. Launceston Rovers were down all day, and there was just never that drive for the Blues.
There were signs at half-time that maybe the Blues were coming back. They only trailed by 17 points, but a brilliant third quarter by North Launceston, which they kicked 9 goals. What was the major factor in that big score?
Well, I felt in the first 10 minutes they kicked 5 goals, and that was the break, and I think this is where Launceston sort of fell to pieces there. North Launceston got great drive from their half-forward line. Norquay, Whitford again was starting to get a lot of kicks in the centre, and this is where I think North Launceston won it. Launceston made some resurgence in the final quarter, mainly due to Todd Lewis being moved into the centre and Robert Dutton to centre half forward. But the game was more or less won in that third quarter when the Robins kicked on that 9 goals.
Well, Bob, what do you think of the future of both the sides? Now, Launceston is the glamour side. It's the one team that has recruited extensively in the NTFA this year, yet their team of stars was beaten yesterday by a team of by just absolute teamwork, really.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to Jim Ross up in the rooms during the game in the broadcast section, and Jim said to me, he said, have a look at that Chang Young out there. He said he'd have to set an all-Australian record. He's been involved with football for 32 years. And he's still able to instill into his young players, which North have got a lot of, that, you know, they keep at it. And they kept at it all day, and they were just relentless, and they overpowered Launceston for the whole 4 quarters.
Really, I think it's good for NTFA football that probably Launceston have been defeated, because many people were thinking that with the line-up that they've got, that they would dominate the competition this year.
Well, you can say they could dominate, but I think probably that loss yesterday, as far as Launceston is concerned, is probably good tonic for them. It will make their selection panel sit down and realise to themselves that they probably had some players that weren't playing in the correct position. That's my opinion anyway.
Yes.
And I think it's probably a good experiment to do this at this particular time of the season. They know they've got the players there, and probably as the year progresses, that they'll probably understand that they may have made a few errors yesterday, and North Launceston have got a feather in their cap now where they beat the Blues, who were hot favourites for that game yesterday. But when it comes around to August, September, you know, things will probably change, and both sides on yesterday's performance will probably both be better sides too.
And of course, Launceston have still got Ian Donaghy to come back, haven't they?
Yes, I think probably within a couple of weeks we'll see the Donaghy playing for the Blues.
OK, Bob, we'll be back with more detail shortly, but the final score yesterday at York Park saw North Launceston 17-17, 119 to Launceston 13-11, 89. Let's see some highlights from the game. A great passage of play by North Launceston, carries the ball to full forward Maynard, who goaled from the mark.
John Hill of the Robins, left foot's in towards centre of the ground. The kicking's not real good, taken by Shane Young. Young gets the long hand pass over to brother Ricky. Ricky looks for the hand pass to Whitford. Good football, Robins, they're away. Onto the right boot, Whitford goes, sends it to Maynard. And Maynard, leading magnificently, has taken the mark.
Strong mark in defence to Terry Lucas of Launceston.
And this gives Hughes a chance to drive the ball deep. A beautiful kick from Hughes. A chance there for a Blues mark. I think it's going to be paid. It is.
Robert Burke, another fine mark for the Blues.
For the Blues to bring it away with a kicked out towards the half-forward line. Again looking for Burke. This time he sets himself, and Burke has taken the mark.
A great snapshot for goal by Ricky Young.
In hard, nobody able to pick it up, and the umpire surely must call a halt to this. No, Ricky Young ferrets his way out of a pack and snaps a beauty.
North were on fire in the first quarter, and here's another goal to Michael Elmer. Pass out here to Elmer. Elmer from centre half forward, puts right boot to ball, up towards the full forward line, and it's a great snap for goal by Elmer. Malcolm Atkins snaps truly for a goal to Launceston. Rushing off 2 or 3 tackles by North Launceston players, finds Malcolm Atkins. Atkins shoots from the boundary line. Is it a good shot? Oh, great shot, Malcolm Atkins. A quick reply by North Launceston as Darren Harper goals on the run.
Well, gets on the right boot and drives towards half forward. Good shepherding there by Ricky Young for Maynard. It's not going to come off though as Norquay gets it. Gets the hand pass across to Harper. Young Harper sets them up. There it goes. And it's the first one to Young Harper from centre half forward.
But 10 seconds later, and Evans puts through another one.
And nobody getting a real clear tap down, but the ball goes North's way, picked up by Atkins. Atkins a big one in towards the Maynard direction. The ball is going to bounce badly, but picked up beautifully there by Evans of North Launceston. Then there's another one.
Dutton marks strongly for Launceston and kicks a badly needed goal.
Away from the centre, gets it over towards Todd Lewis. Lewis is going to get bounce of ball, bounce beautifully for him. Now he's going to right foot in towards the full forward line. Player set, and a great mark has been taken.
Now Lucas gets stuck into the ball and a long kick goes up towards the centre wing position. But again, North winning handsomely around the pack, finds Whitford roving intelligently. Finds, oh, good mark. Great mark to Michael Elmer.
Overs going in there as we see Atkins with the head guard on. And I'm looking for little Stowd there. He's coming down. He's got the head guard too. As we see the ball knocked down, picked up for the Blues and driven in towards the full forward line. It's going to make the distance. I think it was Thurlow that kicked it. I'll have to wait until he turns around, but it was a very good goal indeed. See the ball go to ground as Dutton moves into the fray again. Gets the tap down towards Darren Davies. Davies left foots the ball towards the centre wing position. It's going to bounce away from all players as now Tony Brown goes racing after it. Hotly pursued there by Kim Hughes. But Kim Marsh, I should say. I'm talking about cricket, am I? As it goes back in towards a pack of players. Now it's been picked up for the Blues and racing in towards an open goal is Peter Scott. And he's going to polish it off with a 6-pointer. Robert Burke trying to get tapped down. Is he going to find a teammate? No. The ball is going to be finally delivered away by Ricky Young. Right foots it out towards centre wing. Oh, magnificent Mark McCrimmon. Great Mark McCrimmon. Went off before exception.
Goal kickers for the game between North Launceston and Launceston yesterday, Ray. For the Robins, who were victors, Neil Maynard, still his evergreen self, and was able to kick 5 goals. Ricky Young, roving, even though his fitness deteriorated as the game went on, kicked 3. And for Launceston, Malcolm Atkins at full forward and Robert Dutton in the ruck and at centre half forward.
Better players?
Better players for the Robins. Chris Whitford undoubtedly played a great game, even though he was carried off after an unfortunate injury in the last quarter. Kim Marsh, a very reliable player. Shane Young on the wing, played an excellent game all day. Neil Maynard at full forward and Stephen Mackerel. For the Blues, Darren Davies, Robert Dutton, Francis Woolley in the centre, had a very good battle with Whitford, Paul Ellis on the wing and Scott Curran.
And you're 3, 2 and 1?
3, 2 and 1. I gave Chris Whitford 3 votes because of his dominance in the centre, even though Francis Woolley probably had as many possessions as he, but he was able to do more with the ball. Darren Davies for the Blues and Robert Dutton for the Blues for number 1.
Thanks very much, Bob, for a good summary. And we also thank that your son yesterday for the help that he displayed in giving you your statistics and everything yesterday.
He thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Ray.
The NTFA ladder after yesterday's round of matches sees on top North Launceston with 12, Scottsdale with 12, Launceston with 8, East Launceston 8 and Longford 4. And outside the 5 we have Deloraine with 4, City South and Georgetown with yet to score. Now our NTFA best and fairest we find on top Stephen Nichols of Scottsdale, followed by Stephen Howe of Deloraine, and here's what our best and fairest player in the NTFA will win for season 1985.
The goals of the day now, and Ricky Young shrugs a tackle and boots through a goal from 45 metres out. Malcolm Atkins grabs the ball on the boundary line and shoots accurately to bring up another goal for Launceston. Philip Thurlow grabs the ball off the pack and steers one through from a difficult angle. Smithton's Keith Billing receives the handball 35 metres out. A high kick for goal, and the umpire says it's straight through the middle. Ball taken by Gray, kicks over his shoulder, and another goal to Smithton. Finally, North Launceston's Darren Harper from 35 metres out, drop punt, straight through the middle. But the goal of the day goes to Malcolm Atkins of Launceston, kicking from the boundary, and the umpire says it's full points.
Congratulations to you, Mel. There's a new lovely shirt coming your way, compliments of your nearest men's lane store, which of course in your case is Neil Pitts of Launceston. Malcolm Atkins kicking our goal of the day, and you have a choice of a glow weave shirt or a sport shirt, Malcolm, and a voucher on your way from your nearest men's lane store, Neil Pitts of Launceston, coming your way very shortly. In a moment we'll be back, of course, with the mark of the day.
To the marks now, and the first mark taken by Robert Burke from Launceston. Todd Lewis breaks through the centre, kicks long to full forward, and Robert Dutton. Smithton full forward now. Berta Maguire leads out and marks strongly. Last year's Wanda medalist, John Korpashoff. Launceston's John McCrimmon flies high to take a great mark. And the last mark taken again by John Korpashoff. But the mark of the day, no worries here, taken by John McCrimmon from Launceston.
Congratulations to you, John. There was about 3 or 4 fine marks which you took yesterday, and also you'll be the recipient of a very fine shirt, glow weave shirt, courtesy of your nearest men's land store, which is, of course, is Neil Pitts of Launceston. And to our player who takes the mark of the year, this is what he will win for that effort. At every change, and when challenged in the last quarter, their overall strength proved too much for the association, and they ran out winners, the scoreboard reading 22-13, 145 to 16-13, 109. The major goal kickers for the Union were Michael Templeton, who kicked 6, Beaumont 4 and Knight 4, and for the NTFA, Curran, their major goal kicker, with 3. The better players for the Union were Michael and Peter Templeton, Ivanoff, Wright, Knight and Williams, and for the NTFA, Dutton, Young, Dunn, Davies, Taylor and Dennis. Some highlights from the game. Union rover Michael Templeton, who played a magnificent game, kicks a fine goal.
The ball got a knock across the side of the head, picked up by Brown. Brown's hand pass finds a player there in Michael Templeton. He runs into an open goal, and there's the first goal of the match, and it goes to the Union through the ball.
A magnificent solo effort by Shane Young scores for the association.
He's leading in the chase. The hand pass comes out to Young. Young with that blistering pace. He swings around on the boundary line from the forward pocket. He shoots for goal. It looks good.
Michael Templeton again scores with this long shot for the Union. Varnoff here to a player in Michael Templeton. Templeton's kick from centre-half forward goes right up towards the sticks, and he puts through his second goal, and another great goal to Templeton. Michael Fox marks strongly for the association.
Yeah, taken by Lucas, out wide. Up there, high above the pack there was Fox, and he's dragged the mark in very strongly in defence there for the NTFA.
Curran snaps truly for the NTFA.
Can Dutton break away? He swings onto the right foot, looking there for Baker at full forward. Baker up high, couldn't take the mark. He pushes the ball out wide, looking for Lewis. Lewis hand pass, finds Curran. A snap for goal, looks good. Yes, it is, a goal to Curran.
Michael Templeton again kicks truly for the Union. He hand passes to Ivanov. Ivanov, the long hand pass comes out to Templeton. Templeton from the half-forward line. Right puts the ball right up towards the full-forward line. It bounces once, bounces twice, and bounces through. And that's Templeton's third goal for the Union. The elusive Ken Beaumont kicks one of his 4 goals.
And he's driven it 55 metres down, looking for Beaumont over the back of the pack. Trapping the ball there is Eamon, a hand pass on, looking for Max Brown. Brown's hand pass finds Beaumont, and another goal to the Union, and they take the lead once again.
In the 11 goals in the last quarter by Launceston gave them a very easy victory on the scoreboard. 24-17, 161, defeated Georgetown 6-8-44. And their two-pronged attack of Malcolm Atkins and Ian Donaghy kicking 15 goals between the two of them. Atkins with 8, Donaghy with 7, Davies with 3, whilst for Georgetown, Stumpy Clark kicked 3. The better players for Launceston were Cochrane, Borlini, Woolley, Atkins, Ellis and Curran, and for Georgetown, Clark, Nadler, Mansell, Marr and McDonald. 14, 19, 103 by just 3 points. 26 scoring shots to the winners, Launceston, as against 33 to City South. City got away to a great start, led by 15 points at quarter time. They led by 17 points at half time. They trailed by 10 points at three-quarter time due to a magnificent 8-goal burst in that third quarter by the Blues, mainly through the dominance of Robert Dutton. And then it was seesawing game in that last term before Launceston held on to narrowly win by 3 points, 16-10, 106 to City South, 14-19, 103. The major goal kickers for Launceston were Dutton with 7 and Atkins 3, and for City South, Darren Shepherd 5 and McIntyre 3. The better players for Launceston were Dutton, Cochrane, Borlini, Donaghy, Woolley and Ellis, and for City South, the 3 Shepherds, Glenn, Shane and Darren, and then Tubb, Moyer, Bassett and Pryor. And 3-2 and 1 saw 3 to Robert Dutton of Launceston, 2 to Darren Shepherd of City South, and 1 to NTFA over a conflict of sponsorship has added further fuel to the rumours of a statewide football competition under brewery sponsorship. The expulsion was recommended at an NTFA committee meeting last night and will be heard at a special general meeting of 96 delegates from the 8 NTFA clubs in 21 days' time. The conflict of sponsorship has been brought about by the Launceston Football Club signing of a contract with Carlton United Breweries for $30,000 over a 3-year period, which the NTFA believes breaches a contract they have with Bogues for $75,000 over the next 3 years, in which all clubs participate. And in addition, Bogues have allocated a further $15,000 to help the NTFA celebrate their centenary next year. The Launceston Football Club is the oldest club in the state, so how real is the possibility of their expulsion? NTFA President, Mr. Bill Luck.
If the decision of the meeting last night is carried through to the special general meeting, the possibility of the Launceston Club being forced from the NTFA is very real.
It's evident that 6 out of the 8 clubs support that recommendation.
That's right, and I simply say that if that's carried through, certainly the decision would appear to be made now.
Could it mean the end of the NTFA as a football association?
Oh, certainly not, Ray. There have been bigger crises than this that have arisen in the past, and no doubt will strike more in the future. This, perhaps in my time anyway, has been one of the most serious things that I've had to face, and I must say it's certainly not a pleasant thing to be involved in. But of course, business is business, and where it's considered by authorities, in this case the NTFA, that something incorrectly has been done, action must be taken in spite of how hard it is to take that action.
Rumours have been widespread in recent weeks of the formation of a National Football League and a statewide league under brewery sponsorship. Was last night's NTFA decision influenced in any way by these rumours?
I wouldn't think so, Ray. A lot of people may say it has got an effect in terms of the decision that was made last night, and indeed the decision made by Launceston. But a state league will only follow from a national league, and in many respects Launceston can certainly not be blamed for trying to consolidate their position in terms of what will occur in the future.
The last few seasons have seen a general decline in grants from the NTFA to clubs, so much so that this year Mr Luck himself told the clubs not to budget on grants despite the Bogue sponsorship, but to look for other avenues of finance, thus the Launceston Club's contract with Carlton United. According to Launceston Club Secretary-Treasurer Mr Alan Kerry, last night's decision came as a complete shock, particularly as 6 of the 8 clubs voted to support the expulsion recommendation.
Yes, well, I'm really surprised about that. Everywhere I've gone, people have come up and said, well, we understand that you've got to get in there for your own club and do the best you can. And we were told earlier in the year that not to budget for any NTFA grants, even after the Bogues League was announced.
Will you be making every endeavour then to talk to those clubs who voted against you last night?
Well, at this stage, Ray, I think we'll just take one thing at a time and perhaps talk to our solicitor and see where we go from there.
Forfeit. today's game against Longford. Now, we have in the studio today Mr Alan Carey, who's the Secretary-Treasurer of the Launceston Football Club, to give us the club side of things. Alan, welcome to our world of sport. Now, it was a momentous decision by the club not to forfeit the game against Longford.
Yes, it certainly was. It really affected everything.
Well, what's brought that about? I mean, Launceston have taken a pretty hard stand against in the circumstances.
Yes, Ray, we have. We feel that the harshness of the penalties handed down from NTFA level prior to the special general meeting that's been called to consider our expulsion were harsh and unfair, and we have agreed that we would accept some of those penalties. We're prepared to waive the grant money that Bogues have made available that they are now starting to distribute. We're prepared to waive that. We've stated that. We're not prepared to accept withdrawal of our players' passes and officials, and we're not prepared to accept some of their other.
I think that most football followers, Alan, would this week thought, well, the possibility of an expulsion from the NTFA was far beyond the realms of possibility, that some compromise situation may be reached before the next general meeting. But it would appear that following last night's decision that there is an impasse there, and things don't look good for the future of the club as far as the NTFA is concerned.
No, they don't look good for the future of the club, and I sincerely think that the ramifications of this, if plenty of thought is put into it, it doesn't look good for the future of the NTFA.
It's over a conflict of brewery sponsorship. Can you see any breakthrough coming up in the next couple of weeks? Is there any possibility of a breakthrough?
Following last night's meeting, Ray, at the NTFA headquarters, I would have to say no to that, because there would be no way that the Launceston Football Club would be departing from its arrangement with Carlton United Breweries to accept the sponsorship. And we believe we owe it to our players in particular and our club to follow this through to the end. It is very hard to survive today. There have been no grant monies very much made available by the NTFA, $1,000 at the beginning of 1984 and a further $2,000 at the insistence of the clubs at the end of 84 after the season had finished, and we believe that that wouldn't even put the jumpers on our boys' backs.
You'll forfeit today's game against Longford. Is there a distinct possibility that the same situation will arise next week?
There would be a definite possibility of that, Ray, unless there is an immediate breakthrough and we start negotiations immediately.
But you can't see that happening at the moment?
I can't see that happening at the moment following last night's meeting.
Many people would say that Launceston have brought this on themselves through the brewery sponsorship, that invitations have been sent to both you, or have been offered to both your club and North Launceston to join a statewide competition in the very, very near future. What's the situation from the club's point of view there?
I was rather surprised to read the paper when the president of the NTFA made those statements, because clubs themselves, or certainly the Launceston Football Club, has not been given any correspondence or any form of negotiations regarding a state sponsorship deal.
So at this stage there is no thought of forming a breakaway league?
No thought at all.
Tony, as an old Launceston player, what's your opinion?
Well, Ray, the only people that lose out of this situation are definitely the players, because...
And the public.
And the public. And you just can't have a situation to expel a club in an NTFA situation, as Launceston are. What's going to happen next week? Is there going to be a bye? I mean, there's just so many things that have to be ironed out before they get back to the basis of...
Alan, there were moves this week, or there was comment this week, that the CUB, Carlton United Breweries, would approach or have approached other clubs, or just sounded other clubs out.
Yes.
Could this be a means of getting around the situation if other clubs accepted their sponsorship?
Yes, it could have been seen to be that way, Ray. I don't know of the follow-up discussions. I do know that Carlton United Breweries have been discussing sponsorship with various sporting institutions, and I believe some of those clubs have been the NTFA. 6
of the 8 clubs voted at the meeting last week for your expulsion. This week you said to me the club was going to approach their lawyer, their solicitors, and also probably sound out other clubs. Has that been done, and what's the situation?
We've been going fairly slowly, steadily at it, Ray. We've been prepared to look at the whole situation as it is, and we would be seeking legal advice if we were in fact expelled from the association.
So last night's action in boycotting the game against Longford was not on solicitors' advice?
No, it was not.
It was not on solicitor's advice.
No, it certainly wasn't.
So it was only just an action by your delegates at the club.
Yes, that's right. We in fact were going to turn up at the game this morning.
Yes.
We had made a decision to turn up there and use our passes and accept the refusal at the gate calmly and quietly and quite orderly. We did have some information that Mr Gray from the Longford Football Club had in fact contacted the police to have a step-up of activities there, and we felt that there is enough problems associated with sport in various circles and activities with violence, etc., and we felt that whilst we had instructed our players quite clearly, and we know that we have their total support, they're a great bunch of fellas, and we decided to, as much as it hurt, as upsetting as it is, to completely withdraw.
Well, Alan, it's a great pleasure to have you in here today under the circumstances. I know that you come in at very short notice and under the circumstances to give us some information. But I know it hasn't all finished as yet, but let's hope, and I know that you'll probably be wishing along these lines as well, that the situation can be rectified to some extent this week.
Certainly.
But at this stage, the action today could be repeated next week.
That's quite right, Ray. We wouldn't see at this stage where there would be any breakthrough.
Thanks very much. Mr Alan Carey, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Launceston Football Club. Let's check the bow goes out to Mal Atkins. His wife presented him with a baby yesterday, and that was the reason why Mal was not playing for Launceston. I think it happened around about 1 o'clock, just before he was due to go out on the ground. But that right, Alan?
Yes, that's right.
He was due to go out on the ground, but heartiest congratulations to Mal and his good wife, and well done, fella. And also the news that it's been rumoured for the last week or so that East Launceston were after a player, a big player. Well, I think his name's already been on the lips of many players, many football followers, and it's Val Perovic, the former St Kilda and Carlton player, and it's most likely that Val Perovic could be seen in East Launceston colours as from next week. So with Lee Carlson and Val Perovic, the Demons are looming up now as likely finals prospects. But a man who's had a lot of troubles in the past 3 or 4 weeks, but now grinning like a Cheshire cat, Alan Carey, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Launceston Football Club. How are you?
Thanks, Ray.
You've had a real big week.
Yeah, sure have had a big 3 weeks, Ray. I think it
But this week was probably bigger than all, because things worked out at least favourably to get the game underway yesterday.
Yes, they sure did. That was the part that was really concerning us, was our boys and the public in general, and getting those games moving.
It wasn't quite that either. Glenn Bellinger being cleared also was a big asset for you.
Sure was, Ray. Yes, that come quite suddenly.
You've got a very, very worthwhile sponsor there. You better look after him.
Yes, we sure will. There's no doubt about that. They're not here for a minute, Ray, CUB. They're making their stamp into Tasmanian sport, and we're delighted to have them in the Blues camp.
Well, that's the main thing, as long as
Yes.
they're not just in here by a fly-by-night business, because it will upset the apple cart in years to come.
Sure would, Ray. No, I can assure you from discussions that we've had with CUB executives that they're here to stay.
What was the major breakthrough? Because that levy that was imposed upon Launceston of something like $750 a home game,
That's right.
is that just for this season, or how long does that apply for?
Yes, well, we would be speaking to our solicitors in the morning to have that tidied up. But as far as the Launceston Football Club is concerned, it's for the remaining games at home for the season.
Only for this season?
Only for this season.
So the whole situation could be renegotiated as from next year?
Well,
Well, so I'm saying this because there are still quite a lot of loose ends to clear up, aren't there?
Yes, we're concerned, and as I said last night, I spoke to our solicitors with a view of having those points well and truly tidied up.
Yes. Now, what about, you talk about points, what about the match lost against Longford?
Right, Ray. We would be prepared to replay that at a designated time set by the NTFA, but we would like to see it replayed.
It does mean a lot, just not only from the 4 points point of view, but also from the awards point of view, the Heck-Smith Medal and so forth, and our award there, the Channel 9 Ansett Award, where Lyndon Dakin, who is, I think, lying second or third at the moment.
Yes, well, that's right, Ray. There's a lot of factors to be taken into account. Goal-kicking awards, the best and fairest, as you mentioned, and the fact of the 4 points.
Could I say this, that Launceston appear to have come out of it fairly satisfactorily?
Yes, we're very happy, Ray. We're quite pleased with the results from Friday night when the Carlton United people hired a plane and came down, and fortunately for us it all came together at once, because we were able to get everything together and in a proper business-like manner.
This despite the fact that you went to Hobart on Friday morning to see your solicitors down there to lodge that writ against the NTFA.
Well, that's right, Ray.
More or less a wasted trip, wasn't it?
Well, it was, as it turned out, Ray, but it was necessary. We found that we had our backs well and truly to the wall because we wanted to play football, but the president of the NTFA did say without any doubt on the Wednesday night that the game would be off.
The president of the NTFA, Bill Luck, of course, is not, unfortunately, cannot be here today. He's in Brisbane watching Tasmania with the Foster's Cup final up there. But we have the vice president in Stephen Horton, and of course, acting president, aren't you now, Steve?
For a couple of days,
For a
Ray,
couple
yes.
of days. Well, how do you view it? How does the NTFA view the situation?
Well, first of all, I don't think it was the president of the NTFA that really said the game would be off on Wednesday night. Things were put to the Launceston Football Club as late as Thursday, and they were rejected at that stage. So that's one factor. The awards, that's something that will be discussed Wednesday night this week at a delegates meeting. As Mr Carey would realise, there are a lot of things, as he said, that have got to be tied up. And it's no use leaving them until 3 or 4 weeks' time. We've got to get in and tidy the situation up as best as possible and as soon as possible, and that will be Wednesday night. Yes, this Wednesday night.
Could I ask you what would be the main points of this meeting? Are you prepared to divulge them at the moment?
Not all of them, I don't think, Ray. I think that it'll be a situation where there's been enough slinging going on around the place at the moment. I don't think we want any more of that. We're here for the good of the game.
There's no chance then that the whole issue could be open again?
I'm not going to say that it won't be open, Ray. It is up to the delegates. There are certain things that happened on Friday night that, unfortunately, I'm not aware of, and I'm not prepared to say one way or the other on my own behalf, although yesterday I travelled to 3 grounds as acting president to find out the feelings of clubs and delegates and people in the crowd. And this is something that I was pleased I did. I went to Windsor Park, went to Longford, back to Windsor Park and then to York Park. And the feelings aren't all satisfactory at the moment.
Would I be correct in saying this, Stephen, that most of the criticism of the NTFA has been levelled at the president, Mr Luck? But would it be fair to say that the delegates themselves are the ones that have decided on this issue, isn't it, from the clubs?
Yeah, glad you brought that up, Ray. There's something I wanted to mention. Unfortunately, in this competition, there is a great misapprehension among people on the outside and people within clubs as well that the NTFA is run by the NTFA independent delegates, because whenever there's a problem, it is pointed at they, the people, the 3 of us sitting there. But what everybody realises, and Mr Bruce Davidson from the Launceston Club has expressed it time and time again in the last fortnight, that the NTFA is made up of 8 clubs.
That's right. Plus
3 independent delegates. Now, to say that Mr Luck takes things on his back, certainly sometimes he does, but so do all presidents. So he received the full support on Friday morning of what he proposed, and earlier in the year, travelling around yesterday, and it's not only yesterday, people are saying Bill Luck and Rusty Hogarth in certain instances should be replaced. Now, as you said, there are delegates there. The delegates at the beginning of the year had their chance to re-elect a president. They chose Bill Luck. They had a chance also a few weeks back to negotiate a contract with the general manager. They did that. Both decisions were unanimous. Now, there's no use those persons crying and carrying on the way they are at different times and saying that those 2 are not doing their job. They have re-elected them, so let them put up with any inadequacies that they think they're doing.
There's also been another question that's been bandied about, and that's the expenses incurred by the NTFA. Where does the money go? Because the clubs are not getting... that's what brought up this whole issue. The clubs are not getting any or very little grant from the NTFA.
They're not getting the money directly, Ray, but when you've got to pay out an estimate of $5,000 for combined game expenses, $8,000 for footballs that go to the clubs each week, and that's
$8,000.
$8,000.
A lot of money, Alan.
It's a lot of money. Alan would agree, because the clubs get 6, I believe, at the beginning of the year. Then each home game they get another 2 balls. Ground rentals, that's risen greatly. I think we all realise it's something like $40,000 this year. Now, that, taken along with ground staff wages of $14,000, pennants, medallions $5,000, printing, stationery, and a lot of stamps used, Ray, $9,000.
What about umpires?
Umpires, and coming to those, is 54,000 there. Now, for people to think that the money is not going back to the clubs, this indirectly is going back to the clubs. It's just not possible to get enough money through the gate to generate things to go back, enough grants to them. So with the sponsorship we've got, that in some cases, I suppose, is there to try and offset some of these high costs that we've got. Costs are rising everywhere, right?
And you can't do it without sponsorship.
We can't do it without sponsorship, Ray, and this is why we went and tried to seek a major sponsor this year, and everyone was happy with the sponsor we got.
Right. Well, time has got out, Steve, but I'm very pleased you mentioned that other business. It wasn't a question I was going to. You didn't expect the question.
No, I didn't.
But I wanted to clear up one point myself because Mr Luck has been under a tremendous amount of pressure, and he is not the one-man band. It's the same with Alan Kerry. He's got to answer to his committee down there too, isn't that right, Alan?
That's exactly right, Ray.
So are you hopeful that the season will go on as normal? I mean, Stephen has brought up a couple of points there. There's still a certain little doubts about, aren't there?
Yes, there would appear to be from what Stevens said, Ray, but we went along yesterday with the game because we felt sure that the matter had been resolved.
And could we say congratulations to Scottsdale for making those last-minute arrangements and travelling all the way down to fulfil their commitments?
Yes, we're certainly grateful to that, Ray. And could I say, in relation to the grants in 1984, we were aghast at Launceston when we found out that there would only be $1,000, and at the insistence of Georgetown, another $2,000 came out of consolidated revenue. And then at the beginning of this year, we were told not to budget for any grants, and that was made quite clear. Now, we believe with the additional sponsorship monies that have been made available over the past 2 or 3 weeks since this dispute began, that the clubs now, the other 7 clubs, are going to benefit greatly. There is $6,000 which is now available to them.
Ray, the situation that has arisen is not over money. It is far beyond that. It is a breach of an agreement that was agreed to by all 8 clubs early in the year. To say that the money is coming to the clubs, all right, it's $5,000, but the people I spoke to yesterday are not so totally interested in the $5,000. They're talking about loyalty, and that's what it comes back to. And unfortunately, to say that $35,000 which the other clubs will receive directly, to say that that is a great benefit, you've got to look at the minus side. In 2.5 years' time, the NTFA will be looking for a major sponsor. I believe that there's been irreparable damage done at this stage, and we're going to have a heck of a job going out and trying to convince somebody that we've got loyalty.
Well, on that note, let's check the sponsors ladder as from yesterday's round of matches. And that's the Bogues ladder in the NTFA, where we find on top North Launceston with 52, Scottsdale, Launceston, East Launceston, Longford, City South, Deloraine and Georgetown. Our NEC leading goal kicker, in which the winner will receive a 2016
Wide Football League. The league would consist of 2 teams from the NTFA, 2 from the NWFU and 4 teams from the TA NFL. The subject of a statewide football league has resurfaced. But this time it seems to be more than just a rumour. NTFA President Bill Luck spoke today on the likelihood of the State League.
I think it's very likely that we'll see it next year, and I believe the sooner the better. We see in Tasmanian football we're falling way behind the development of other states, and to my way of thinking, the State League will not detract from the other 3 existing associations. In fact, I believe it will strengthen them. We certainly will have to restructure, we'll have to look at including other teams, but most importantly, it means looking very seriously at divisional football, and I believe in an area like Launceston, the matter of divisional football is very important to ensuring our survival.
With the proposed loss of 2 sides to the State League, would the NWFU have a future? President Rex Batt.
We have to have a future. There's no question about that. The NWFU would have to operate with its 7 teams. Well, there's no question. We're just not going to go into recess because there is a statewide competition. But this is where I see problems. I really do see problems. Devonport has been listed as one of the sides. I think people will have to sit down. If the Devonport club is going to go into this statewide competition, they've got to know whether they can recruit from Ulverston, whether they can recruit from East Devonport, whether they can recruit from Latrobe. I can't imagine some of the clubs paying for their players, training their players, and then if Devonport was short, or Devonport was short of a player, then suddenly go over and ask that player to go and play with Devonport. the clubs will not be that state-orientated in their...
An inquiry into the Hawthorn-Geelong game on June the 15th. The penalty was handed out last night by the five-man commission at the end of a 3.5-hour sitting. Matthews, aged 33, was penalised following a wild last quarter in the Hawthorn-Geelong game.
Today, Matthews, a life member of the VFL, refused to comment further on the incident or penalty, except to repeat he was glad it was all over. The club's general manager, though, John Lawrence, was anything but pleased at the wording of the sentence, claiming that Matthews was, in fact, a suspended player.
We're very disappointed, Peter, that Lee was suspended. We regard it as a suspension rather than a deregistration. I think that was just a technicality within the rules. They have to use that rule, but the wording wasn't quite appropriate. We regard it as a 3 home and away match suspension, which in effect means he's missed one game because of the injury after that Geelong match. He'll miss 3 home and away games, plus the opportunity of leading his side to the night premiership. So in effect, it works out to be a 5-match penalty. We're disappointed about that, but we play by the rules at Hawthorn, and we abide by the rules and the decisions.
The Tasmanian senior golf team
schedule for York Park next Saturday would not be played. This follows a decision by the North Launceston club to forfeit its match against Launceston over that club's sponsorship deal with Carlton and United Breweries. North's decision to forfeit its game against Launceston at York Park on Saturday is an illustration of how strong the feeling is by the majority of NTFA clubs against Launceston's decision earlier this year to accept sponsorship from Carlton and United Breweries, the rival brewer to the NTFA's major sponsor, Bogues. Launceston's decision not to accept an arbitration ruling has now led to rival clubs taking their own action, that is, forfeiting their matches against Launceston. This week it's North, and in the following weeks the same policy could apply to Longford, East Launceston, Scottsdale and Deloraine. Whilst these clubs will certainly suffer a substantial loss in revenue, more seriously is the effect on the NTFA. President Bill Luck.
It's the only action that has been left to the clubs. They've been very united in this issue right through, and I think the clubs are to be admired for that. But most of all, I believe that this recent action taken by the clubs shows that the NTFA is united, it's a strong, coherent body, and that it will take whatever action is necessary to ensure that the reputation of the NTFA is continued.
The president of the North Launceston Football Club, Mr Jack Hill, said the club was acting on principle, and although the decision to forfeit Saturday's match to Launceston was one of the toughest in the club's long history, the club would adhere strictly to that principle. Although he said that if the differences between the NTFA and the Launceston club could be resolved, North would be prepared to resume matches against Launceston at any time. With the likely forfeiture of all of Launceston's remaining roster matches, how will this affect the NTFA final series?
Decision, the way I understand it from the presidents, is that the matter will apply for the roster games and that the clubs will treat the finals in a different way. And I think that's most sensible in the circumstances. The finals must not be jeopardised in any shape or form, and the clubs are quite prepared in the interests of football to continue through the finals with Launceston participating in them.
And still on football, Essendon, the title holders, and Hawthorn will meet in tonight's grand final of the Foster's Cup. With a heavy workload on players in recent weeks, neither team has named their final lineup, but Essendon will start favourites to retain the title. Tas TV will have a delayed telecast of the last half tonight, commencing at 11:15.
14 millimetres of rain fell on VFL Park between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. yesterday. But the ground this morning, although in some areas was still a little soft underfoot, had dried out extremely well. So much so that ground manager Gary Clayton described it as a pleasant surprise.
I must admit I was agreeably surprised when I came out this morning and checked the condition of the ground. There's only the surface moisture on it from the overnight dew, and we're currently picking that up with our sponge roller, and we'll put the heavy roller over after lunch, and I think the boys will have a good surface for tonight.
The surface does look in ideal condition. The centre perhaps looks the only problem, but it's not a problem we're used to here, because is the drainage now too good?
It is, Sandy, yes. I guess we've gone from one extreme to the other. Last year we had a problem where it wasn't draining well, so we took some steps over the summer to rectify that, and we find now it's draining too well. Not holding the grass together as well as we would like there, but I guess that's a pleasant situation rather than having the cricket wickets that other grounds do have.
Perhaps the only dampener for followers of the two clubs that attend tonight's game is that they won't get to see the presentation ceremony to the winners after the match. As was the case last year, that presentation will be held indoors for what the AFC describes as security reasons.
To hockey now.
Including 7 premierships, then as a coach, taking his teams to 3 premiership victories, 4 including the time he was also captain of Carlton. Now, to a lot of people, it looks like it might be all over. Ron Barassi joins us now from our studios in Melbourne. Good morning, Ron.
Morning, Steve.
Let's talk about the ending the association with Melbourne, first of all. Was it a case of quit or be pushed out?
No, it was a case of quit, but I dare say if I'd hung around, I would have been pushed out.
Yeah. Even though you've said you'll take this coming year off, 1986 off, likely you might change your mind? I mean, have you had any tempting offers?
No, and I don't expect any, because I've made it fairly clear that I want a year off.
Why do you want the year off?
Oh, I'm not sure I want to continue on in football.
Now, hang on a minute. You mean you're not sure you want to continue on in football for the next 12 months, or you're not sure you want to continue on in football, period?
Period. I'm spending the next year looking at which direction my life is going to take. For the first time for, well, ever, I guess, I don't really have, I don't know exactly my major aims in life. That's fairly unusual for me.
Yeah.
But I'm not too worried about it, because whatever I do, I'm going to do things that I like.
So a lot of people watching us this morning might say, come on, Barassi's having us on. 32 years in VFL, only 48 years old. Does he really expect us to believe he's going to walk away from it all?
Well, I did have a year off in 1972.
Yeah.
And I found during that year, or halfway during that year, that I was missing the intense involvement of coaching. And that might happen again, but, you know, that's another, well, 13 years down the track. So I'm not sure, but as I said, Steve, I'm not worried.
You've admitted that your 5-year plan for Melbourne had failed.
Yes.
But I wonder why it did fail. I mean, you've said you can't blame yourself because you know in your own mind you did your best. So whose fault is it? Whose fault was it?
Well, I'm not sure it's anybody's fault, really. I mean, if you assume that the coach has done his best and his best has been okay, let's assume that for a moment.
Right.
Then it gets back to the amount of talent you have, because in a fierce competition like the VFL, you know, you do have to have a fair amount of talent, and there's no worries about saying anything like that. I think most people appreciate it. It's never been anything else. In fact, in modern times, it's perhaps more truer, because you know, being more professional, you just got to have the ability. And Melbourne hasn't had enough. They haven't had the wherewithal to buy enough compared with other clubs in the VFL have done well. All those sorts of factors to do with talent, I think.
And yet failure has never been in your makeup. I mean, and I want to get away from the game for a moment. Given that fact that you don't accept failure easily, what impact has this self-confessed failure had on you personally?
Well, see, I don't feel a failure. If I've done my best, I think that's all anybody can do. And I've had failures in other parts of my life from time to time, so I don't think any person in life, particularly one who stays in the sport, and particularly a team sport, is not unused to failure. I mean, you have your ups and downs, you have your wins and your losses, and it's how good you come out of dark periods or temporary periods of failure that really counts.
Have you been going through, you've used the term, dark period lately? I mean, the last couple of times we've had you on the program, it hasn't been the Barassi of old. And I've in fact said it to Sue.
What is that, anyway?
Well, I mean, you're quieter, more reserved. Have you, I mean, have the last couple of months been tough for you?
Oh, yes. You know, the Melbourne period, there's no question, has been tough. But, you know, it's a bit like if you know somebody's got the flu all the time, or they're a little bit ill all the time, you're very sympathetic in the beginning, aren't you? But if it goes on for months and months or years, well, in the end, you don't want to know about it. I mean, it's just too much. And I think the same could be said of a coach who's not enjoying success. If you're continually harping on that subject or looking sad, bereft of joy, well, you know, you become a bit boring. I'm not into being boring, and I don't feel that one should be weighed down by problems of this nature.
Well, to continue the analogy, go and find yourself some sunshine and a nice place to rest.
The under-19s and the reserves. In the reserves, it was East Launceston 19-6, 120, defeating Launceston 10-10, 70, whilst in the under-19s, North Launceston were big winners, 21-8, 134 over Launceston, 5-4-34. But the qualifying final, it was Launceston and Scottsdale, and to give us some details on the game, it's Tony Fafaro. How are you, Tone?
Good, thanks, Ray. Yes, well, at York Park yesterday, the ground was in perfect condition. There was a slight breeze towards the town end, probably a 4 or 5 goal breeze, and when Launceston won the toss and elected to kick against the breeze, I thought, hello, they must have known something, because in the first half, Scottsdale completely outplayed Launceston in the aspect that they stopped their running players from getting the ball, especially off the big fellas from Dutton and Bellinger and that. And I'm sure Coach Greg Lethborg was quite happy with his charges up until half-time. They held a 7-point lead at quarter-time, mainly through the efforts of John Petterwood on the half-forward flank for Scottsdale, who ended up kicking 3 goals for the day and could have had at least 6. He kicked 3 points, and I'm sure if the other Scottsdale half-forward line had kicked goals, I'm sure they would have been further ahead at quarter-time. Launceston's players, Bellinger on the half-forward line had a roving commission. I thought Bellinger played particularly well in the first quarter. He kept Launceston going and started off by kicking their first goal against the breeze. And Brand on the half-back line kept the back line together and did stop Scottsdale to a certain degree.
They kicked 3-3 in the first quarter to Launceston's 2-2. And I'm sure that Kerry Sanders was quite happy with that display of the back line. In the second quarter, Scottsdale continually kept the ball away from Launceston's running players, and I'm sure that Kerry Sanders was quite happy with Mark Harris's game in this quarter because he kept Scottsdale out with some strong marking. They didn't have a focal point up there, Scottsdale, because the ball was continually on their forward line, but they had no one to take the big mark. Whereas Launceston, on the other hand, did have some taller players to take the marks with Dutton, Bellinger, Atkins, and at half-time, Scottsdale still held a 6-point lead.
We've got Robert Dutton in the studio. Rob, as Tony said, the surprise was Launceston kicking against the breeze in that first quarter. What was the method behind that? Would you have any idea?
Well, we're always a slow starting side, and I'd say that Tony Brand, being acting captain, would have discussed it with Kerry earlier, and I would suggest that he would have liked us to kick against the wind to start off with.
Well, you got a great start by kicking the first 2 goals and went to an early lead.
Yes, we went to an early lead, and as it turned out, we did start off well. But with our lack of match practice over the last few weeks, I think, that was behind the move.
Yeah, we might talk about that, the lack of match practice. Tony has gone into the second quarter. Now, how strong did you feel that breeze was out there?
It was a fairly strong breeze, and it was swirling round, so it wasn't a consistent breeze to one end or the other.
It was certainly a 4-goal breeze, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes, yes.
Tony, second half?
Well, the second half completely belonged to a chap by the name of Robert Major Dutton, because Kerry Sanders made a few changes after half-time by putting Robert to centre-half forward, and immediately he kicked a goal and followed up by 2 others for the quarter. And I think this was one of the moves that really did pay off, as well as putting big Tony Walsh into the ruck. He rucked particularly well all day, and it seemed that when Greg Lethborg moved Roosendahl out of the ruck to centre-half back, which to my mind, I don't know whether it was a good move or not, because Roosendahl being a bit slow and Robert being a little bit quicker, I don't know whether the move paid off.
Well, speaking of that, there has been a certain amount of conjecture, Robert, about Launceston playing 3 tall tapping ruckmen, yourself, Berkey and Walshy. But yesterday it seemed to work very well.
It'll work well for us in the dry, and it makes us a lot more versatile. But then it's up to the smaller running players, because we probably lose one. We lose one running player by playing the extra ruckman.
Yes.
It's up to them. We've got to have them performing.
But he's certainly a good tapping ruckman.
Oh, he's a brilliant ruckman, and he's very tall, and he plays good footy.
And do you feel that you feel quite happy playing the role that you're playing at the moment?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, well, the difference with the two sides, especially in the second half, was that Scottsdale could only manage 3 goals 6 to Launceston's some sort of score like they end up with 19-7 after they kick 5-3 to half-time, which is something like 14 goals to 3, and that was a big difference, because Launceston had a lot of players on their forward line being able to kick goals, and when you look at Scottsdale's side with young John Petterwood kicking 3 and Robert Kerrison kicking 3, they didn't have a lot of other major goal kickers, obviously, and I think that's a worry for Scottsdale, because with their injury problems, with Mark Coniston out of the side, who obviously is a very talented player, as everybody knows, and you lack with his ability on the forward line, and you can't replace him with just an ordinary player. You know what I mean?
Rob, what did you feel was the major significance of Launceston in that second half, to dominate play so as they did?
I think all the players just decided, well, we've just got to go out there and we were all playing bad, and we were so close. We were only a goal down, I think, at half-time, and to be playing so bad and still be so close, we just thought, well, it's about time we did.
You did make a significant statement about 2 minutes ago, said that you believed that Launceston lacked hard match practice.
Yeah, so I think it was 3 games we missed throughout the season, and only playing on York Park twice for the season, I think that combined to make it harder for us to get ourselves up in the hard and tough games.
But what about your own form? Now, by a player of your standards, best and fairest winner with Clarence last year and dominating the final series, do you feel that you've had a successful season by your own standards?
No, I haven't been really happy. I started the season off fairly well,
yes,
and I had a bit of a bad back, and it's sort of hung around for about 8 or 10 weeks, and it's sort of something that's been hard to shake off, and I'm not really happy with my form. Probably got back to form a little bit on Saturday,
yes,
for the first time.
But you've also had business commitments as well. Has this affected you, do you think, to any great extent?
Oh, it has to affect your football. You know, anything that you go into and take over a new business or something must affect football as well. You know.
Tony, what do you think of Launceston now? They turned the corner yesterday. They met the challenge with Scottsdale. Can they go on with it? Because they've got plenty of incentive.
I think they can. As Robert said, they are lacking match practice because when you come up against sides like North and Scottsdale, you've got to be match fit.
Yes.
And some of the Launceston players are just starting to run into form, and I think each game they'll get better and better because they've got a lot of good players that have to combine together on the day to be match winners, and I'm sure they have got them.
Rob, you're one side that appears to be well equipped in most positions. You've got tall players, you've got medium-sized players, and you've got the runners. Now, do you feel that the troubles that the club has gone through this year, getting over that first hurdle yesterday, can give them the added incentive of going on with it?
Oh, it's certainly united the club.
It has,
the club's very, very strong. All the players are right behind each other, right behind the coach, and you know, it's just all well and for the rest of the season, hopefully.
Is it as well as equipped as what Clarence was last year?
It's different style of team, different style of footy, but the atmosphere is still there the same. I think we've got a very good chance of going on with it. It's made it very hard for us throughout the year with the trouble with all the sponsorship, etc. But I think it will unite the team.
Well, they made no bones about it yesterday with a very easy victory over Scottsdale, 19-7, 121 to 8-15-63. Let's see some edited highlights from the game. Aaron Davies will Bellinger marks strongly in goals. It goes up towards the edge of the 15-metre square. Now great mark. Coming out and taking the mark for Launceston. Dead in front is Bellinger. Good mark to Malcolm Atkins.
Lovegrove to clear the ball to the far side of the ground. Here's danger. Atkins from behind, and he's taken a great mark.
Atkins marks again, and this time he goals.
The long kick from behind, it's Atkins. Atkins had his name written all over the ball, and he's taken the mark 15 metres out from goal.
Kerrison kicks a nice goal from the centre half forward.
His first goal, the drop punt kick on its way, and he's put it right through the middle. Great start now for the Scottsdale team. He's put through their first goal.
Petterwood takes a spectacular mark and goals. Seen by the umpire as McDougall's kick is going out towards centre half forward. Behind, great mark. Tremendous mark is taken by Petterwood, I think it is. Petterwood again scores for the Magpies.
His kick towards centre wing. Petterwood's there. Takes the mark on half forward. The long kick towards goal. Burke's running back. Can he touch it? It bounces once. Burke touches it right on the line and through for only... No, it's a goal.
A fine passage of play by Launceston, but only a point to Ellis. Again found Scott going past. Scott's long kick goes up towards the half forward line as Woolley breaks clear for the Blues. A lovely pass, and he finds Ellis making position at centre half forward. Ellis will immediately go on with play, runs in from about centre half forward, puts boot the ball, going up towards the goals, and it's just slightly offline. Danny Hall marks well at centre half forward.
And Hall leading in the raise up high, and Hall pulls in a beauty.
Roosendahl also marks well.
Harris up to the half-back flank, waiting for Scottsdale as Roosendahl, and he's put in a nice mark.
This time Thurlow marks over
Harris,
Danny Hall.
outer
Side of the ground, this time he favours, getting plenty of good distance too. Behind, Thurlow brings down a great mark. An easy goal for the Blues. Taking the mark there was Bennett. Backing him up there is Michael Goss. Play is sputtered up. Out comes the loose ball towards Walsh. Walsh hand passes to Bellinger. Bellinger moves in towards an open goal. Short pass towards Scott. Scott sees the open goal in front of him and puts an easy goal through for the Blues. Rodney Hill takes a strong mark.
He handballs it over to number 17 to McCrimmon. McCrimmon gets it over to Cochrane. Now back across to Lucas. Lucas down to the centre half forward position. Up high for Scottsdale was number 4 in Rodney Hill.
Kerrison marks and he scores full points.
Roosendahl's there, pushes it back in the Hill direction. Scott's starting to attack now through Lethborg. Lethborg across the top to Woodard. Woodard streams towards centre half forward, and the mark pulled in by Kerrison.
So too does Scott Woods from this mark.
Roosendahl turns on a little bit of pace, goes onto the left boot. Waiting at the back there, and a great mark there taken by Wood for Scottsdale.
The Magpies are on fire as Petterwood scores a fine goal.
Gets it out towards Petterwood. Petterwood will go goal. Woods, he lines him up and has a shot, and this is a great goal.
Ellis replies quickly for the Blues. He's a long kick of the ball. This one is no exception. It's going to land right in the 15-metre square. Getting high. Magnificent mark here taken by Scott, I think it is, or Ellis. Ellis. Runs into the open goal, puts it through.
Petterwood with 3 and Kerrison 3. Best players, Launceston, Dutton, Woolley, Walsh, Burke, Harris and Bellinger. Whilst for Scottsdale, Petterwood, Kerrison, Wilson, Dennis and Woodard.
Well, there's plenty of improvement left in Launceston side with the return with Todd Lewis and Scotty Curran also, so we're going to fit them in.
It's going to be a big headache of selection, I think, on Thursday night, right?
Still, it's a nice position to be in, isn't it?
Nice problem, yes.
Rob, it's great to have you up here, and we wish you all the very best with your hotel venture there at the Royal Hotel in George Street. That's the new Your Sport magazine that's out. You've probably seen it on the newsstands. That's the 3rd edition with Warwick Capper on the cover, and some orange and mango. That's for you, not for the pub. And with very best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Tone, for your summary. And now let's check our NEC Goal Kicking Award. We find that Chris Reynolds, again, has won the NEC Goal Kicking Award.
And the goals of the day in the qualifying final, and Petterwood's long kick from half forward looked to be touched on the line, but the goal umpire said it was all clear. Petterwood again, this time receiving the handball from Bennett, and from 55 metres out, drives it home. O'Rourke now for Ulverston. Deep in the forward pocket, swings one over the shoulder, and goals for the Robins. Adrian Seeley turns brilliantly out of the pack and snaps truly from 20 metres out. Clayton Davies on half forward. Grabs the ball, could have gone for the handball, but decided to kick long and brought up another goal for the Robins. But the goal of the day goes to John Petterwood. Half forward for Scottsdale, receiving the handball from Bennett and driving through a great goal from 55 metres out.
Two goals were kicked. But to give us all, tell us all about the details and how it happened, it's Stephen Hordle. How are you, Steve?
Very well, thanks, Ray. What a fantastic day yesterday, as you said. It was a game where it had everything. It had great marking, it had great leading, great passing, players putting in, giving their all, hoping for that second chance with a weak spell next week. It started off at a hectic pace with North into attack, Launceston coming back at them, and Donachie, the man who ended up with 11 goals for the day, a tremendous feat from him. He kicked a goal at the 2-minute mark after a pass from Curran, and from there on in, it was a neck-and-neck battle for the first quarter. Into the first quarter, it was 3-7 North to 4-1 to Launceston, and even though North had more shots, they'd frittered away a few chances, and Launceston was still in with a big chance at this stage. There were a lot of head-high tackles early in the game. Players were testing each other out.
I wouldn't agree with the head-high tackles, Steve. I thought there were some good physical clashes, but I didn't think there were too many head-high tackles.
There was a couple, Ray, that I think they were just testing each other out. There were a lot of good physical clashes, I agree. But there were the odd one or two which were picked up early by the umpires. And in the first quarter, as I said, it was Donachie who, with 4 goals, led out, was hit on the chest each time by magnificent passing, and I felt sorry for Loon at full-back because he's a very good player, but yesterday Donachie was in superb touch and he was fed just quite superbly, and for a full-back to have that happen to him in a final, it's something else. But I know that Brett will come back in a fortnight's time in the grand final, and whoever he plays on then, he'll get up and do the job again. Bellinger playing was a surprise to me because I saw him Thursday night training, and for a guy who couldn't really handle putting a tracksuit on his leg, I didn't think that he should have played, and he certainly had no influence whatsoever on the game yesterday, and it's a shame that some of these players do play when they're not fully fit, because it's a letdown to their team, to their players and to themselves. The second quarter is where Launceston started to get away. They kicked 8 goals to North's 5. They started to get on top in the centre, where I thought that Walsh was starting to get taps out, and Woolley came into the game. And his kicking, Woolley, was quite good because each time he got it, he did something with it and kicked it long.
And there was one of the players I thought that was very constructive in the second quarter, in John McCrimmon.
Yes, McCrimmon had a very good game yesterday and ended up kicking goals and roughing a few players up, letting them know he was there.
And this is Francis Woolley here in one of his great kicks.
That's right, Ray. And it's the order of the day yesterday was the long kicking, but it wasn't to be from a lot of players. There was some short passing going on, and the ball was being crisscrossed the ground when it should have been directed right to the goal mouth. But players will learn from this, and it turned out to be a magnificent game, Ray, because North were right down at one stage. There was something like 43 points down in the third quarter, and then they started to roll. Marsh came out onto the ball. Loon was moved from full-back and started to get into the game, and both these players exerted pressure on the Launceston side in the last quarter and a half and played superbly. Shane Young there chased most of the day. A couple of times I thought that he, along with other North players, stood around, and which is not typical of North Launceston, and it was a bit disappointing watching down from the stand to see some of the players who weren't chasing. The shepherding wasn't going on in the first half, and they just weren't playing as a team, and allowed Launceston to dictate the terms, which they did, and they started to take the game right away from North. And at one stage it looked to be a game where Launceston could have won by space. The North stand went very quiet. Yvonne and the cheer squad, they started to disappear at one stage. Yvonne even went down to the ground. But
quiet as she was all day there in that period.
She gives people heaps, doesn't she? But
tremendous supporter.
Near the end of the third quarter, North started to rally. They were about 7 or 8 goals down then, and a couple of quick goals. The first goal, the 29-minute mark, not a murmur from the North stand. A minute later, another one by Marsh at the 30-minute mark in the third quarter, and the stand became alive. Even at the break in the last quarter, 6 goals down North were going into the last quarter, and even at that stage, Launceston should have sewn the game up. But North appeared as though they were coming back. They had players who had been down during the day, getting back in front. As I said, Marsh and Loon, who I thought had been soundly beaten in the back line, came good. Marsh with 3 superb, absolutely superb goals in that last quarter. Loon with long kicks. Ricky Young never gave in all day. Kenny Jordan was another one. For Launceston, Lucas kept battling. Walsh, Dutton, a few others kept going. But unfortunately, the legs and the head started to bow for Launceston late in the last quarter. North got a couple of goals in front, and Launceston dropped their heads, and I thought North will run away and win by space here. But it wasn't to be. The ball came down, Willie got it out of the centre, drove it forward, and before long, Launceston had a couple of goals, and they were right back in it. But the siren sounded Ray and ended what was a truly superb game at York Park yesterday.
Well, we're lucky to have the coach of North Launceston here today, and Tony Young. G'day, Tony. Got a bit of a sore throat there at the moment. We'll have some water for you in just a few moments, or something that might be a little bit better for you. But how did you view the game from the bench? It was a game of 2 halves, Launceston virtually controlling the first half and maybe up to the halfway through the third quarter, but then North came back. Was that how you saw it?
Yes, that'd be a fair assumption, Ray. Excuse me.
Have a glass of water there, mate.
Thank you.
Well, after all that shouting yesterday.
Yeah, it's not bugs. Well, really what happened, I thought, we had a lot of kids in the side that played yesterday, and there was... excuse me, about 8 that was played in their first senior final game. And Launceston, when you go through them, after last year's experience in the finals, I think they didn't have anyone that hadn't played in a final. And we've really blooded 8 or 9 kids that's come through this year. And there was a lot of pressure on them there yesterday. I said to Brucey Lockhart after the game, he only took 1 mark for the game. But I said, you remember that mark, because that's probably the greatest mark that you've ever took. And he took it in the last few minutes of the game.
Yes.
But if you look back, he was probably well beating the same as Loon, but they didn't chuck it in. Young Addo, Tony Young, Dean Jackson, they all come back in.
Yes.
But that certainly was. I never give it away that we couldn't come back.
No.
But... you know, Launceston certainly played very well.
Well, your comeback was reminiscent of North Melbourne's yesterday. The young players just kept running, and they never gave it away at any stage. And once a team gets a sniff that the opposition is starting to wilt a bit, that makes them go all the harder. Yeah, Did you sense that yesterday?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ray. But Elmer being out really is one of our good running players. And we had players down everywhere and was well beaten by Launceston. You know, we can't hide the fact, and just as I said to them at 3/4 time, I couldn't hide any more players. And I wasn't too happy about a few of them, particularly that we just weren't running.
Yes.
You know, and if we'd have looked at our training during the week...
You trained superbly during the week.
Yes, that's right. And I couldn't work out why we just wasn't following on with our run.
Well, could I ask you this? There were rumours going around a lot before the game started that you were carrying 2 injuries. One was Brett Hughes and one was Stephen Mackerel. Now, I went and asked you, and I know you told me the truth, that the side would not change. But was there a doubt about the 100% fitness of those 2 players?
Oh, well, yes.
Well, there's your 2 runners.
Yeah. But, you know, like, it's a man's game, and the fitness... I won't play unfit players at North, but it all depends what type of injury they had.
Yeah. And what type of person they are, too.
That's right, too, Ray, and the character of them 2 boys are very strong. But it wasn't anything to impede their legs.
No.
So, you know, I felt they could carry their injuries.
Well, you mentioned young players. Now, 2, I think, that came to mind yesterday who rose to the occasion despite the fact that they may have been down early was young Height and young J.J. Evans. They really took the ruck initiative away from Launceston in that last quarter and a half?
Well, they certainly did, Ray. And, you know, when we lined up, I looked around the ground and it was about 8 inches shorter all over the ground.
Yeah.
But, no, they played against a good ruckman in Dutton who's had VFL experience.
Tremendous player.
You know, and been well coached over there and played in Hobart. And I can't understand people why they don't come and see these kids play, because I feel in all the clubs the standard of the football in the NTFA is extremely high.
Exactly.
Contrary to what a lot of other people say, that most of us coaches haven't had VFL experience.
The armchair critics.
Yes, and we don't know how to play the run-on game. I can assure you that the coaches in the NTFA have certainly changed their style. You know, no other bloke could have got a game yesterday out of both sides, like I'm sure Kerry, you know, must be disappointed naturally, but he couldn't have asked for anything more out of his side as far as running, and I couldn't.
There were two moves which were muted, which you didn't make until late in the game. One was Brett Loon on Ian Donaghy. Now, did you feel that he was coping with the situation as best as he could early in the game?
Oh, well, I think if you look back over the last 18 months, it'd be 2-2.
Yes.
You know, the first time we played Deloraine, Donaghy gave him the stick, and the next 2 times he certainly didn't. I had to put Elmer back on Donaghy. But in the back of my mind was last year when we had a few players out against Longford who played very well that game in that first elimination final. I thought, with Elmer out, I didn't have any more marking power. You know, and it's very easy to say shift him and shift that bloke.
Yeah.
But I had to keep the balance of the side up round the ground through our lack of height.
And by taking Macra at full back, you left one of your main motivators in, around the ground.
Well, that's right, Ray. And you know, then we finished up with young Aussie, young Hardstaff, them blokes on the ball who were far shorter than Curran and them fellas. So, you know, sometimes you've got to be willing to concede some goals to be able to get your own game going.
Now, did you do that with Kim Marsh? Because John McCrimmon gave him a run around there, particularly in that second quarter.
Oh, yes, I like McCrimmon's type of play. He's my type of player. I think he's a very good player. I think John, now he's settled down a bit, will be one of the best players in the NFA for a long while. He's got a bit of go in him. But, oh no, Luter's a big kicker of the ball, Ray. Now, it doesn't matter. He kicks both feet. There's nobody kicks the ball better than Kimmy Marsh. Both feet. And I thought, you know, maybe we've got nothing to lose.
Well, full marks to him, because he came back in that and was a real motivator, kicking those 3 magnificent goals which gave you the centre victory.
Oh, yes. I think when you look through the game, the ball ran very well for Launceston. And fair enough, too, they made the breaks for themselves. But they screwed a few goals, you know, round the sides of packs. And, you know, maybe the break started to come our way a little bit. And, you know, luck's a fortune, isn't it?
I think as you said earlier, Tony, that it started once your players kept running. And early in the game, as we've said before we came on, that some of the players weren't running for North. But after they kept running, they kept putting in, and that old North tradition came out, and they took the game right up to Launceston.
Well, you had 3 great runners yesterday, in Kenny Jordan, your son Shane, Roger Henderson, played a wonderful game at half-back line, and I thought another young player who did everything that was asked of him, particularly in a key position, and he's only your first-year player, young Darren Harper.
Oh, yes. You know, they're babies, and... you know,
they grew up quickly yesterday, Tony.
Oh, yes. You know, we don't play them at North unless they're good enough and unless they're going to become of age very quickly. But, you know, with my other co-coaches, Ian and Robbie, we've brought along enough kids to keep North on top. You know, it's nice to win the premiership. We'll certainly be going flat out, but it's the continuity of things that to keep North on top, and that's our job. And Robbie's doing a good job in the thirds. Ian's doing an excellent job in the
seconds.
Thirds, so we get on very well together. We know what we want. They play the same type of football. And I think most of all, really, Ray, the whole point of it is they play for the club.
Exactly.
I think one of the other...
That's the epitome of North Launceston success.
One of the other bright lights for North yesterday was the improved form of Neil Maynard.
Oh, well...
You don't have to say too much about that.
Nobody loves Neil more than I do.
That's right. Started to show the old dash of old yesterday, some marking and coming down the ground.
Well, they talk about their big players over in Melbourne. This man's played 320 games for North.
Right.
And, we've only got one 300-game player, and that's Neil Maynard.
Can I ask you one final question, Tony? When you got the scent of victory in that last quarter, did you send a message up to E1 on the grandstand to start to get them rolling again? Because, by gee, they certainly lifted too.
Oh, there's a couple out there. There's Bobby Hyde too. Behind me gives me plenty of curry.
Anyway, it was a great game yesterday, and it should be a fine one this afternoon between City South and Scottsdale. But the final score yesterday saw North Launceston Launceston 21-15, 141 to Launceston 21-14, 140. Let's see some edited highlights from the game. Curran to Donaghy, who marks and kicks the first goal for the Blues. Pass from Dutton. He finds Curran. Curran going on with play. Left foots the ball well up towards the full forward line. And it's Donaghy from behind. Donaghy taking the mark. A well-judged mark. Ian Donaghy well within kicking distance. 45-degree angle. Ian Donaghy moves in. The kick very good off the boot and it's touched on the line, I think. No, it's through. Donaghy again, his second.
Into attack. Looking for a lead up forward. There's none there. Now there is as Donaghy comes forward. There's the kick in towards half forward. Player set Evans up magnificently. Couldn't bring it down. Donaghy chases it beautifully. He's rabbited it and he's put it through.
Good mark here, taken by Darren Harper.
Drop punt kick and good. Coming towards half-back. Oh, good mark. As we wait now and see this
Neil
kick
Maynard
from that
marks
player.
spectacularly
Anyway,
and kicks an easy
Darren
goal.
Harper. In fact, he drives one deep in towards the full forward line. Maynard! A magnificent mark, Neil Maynard.
Ricky Young marks and goal from the kick.
Jackson's in there for the Robins. Can't pick up, but now taken by the elusive Jordan. Left foot's towards half-forward. Ricky Young. Players going in.
Andrew Parker marks well on the wing.
Finally, he's done well for the Blues. Walsh. He gets the hand pass wide, but as you can see, the ball now comes out towards half-back. Lucas is going to pick it up well for the Blues and drives the ball in towards the centre wing position. Player set on. A good mark has been taken out there by Parker.
Robert Dutton strong in the air. Ball was knocked away by Harris. Harris again takes the loose ball. The long kick from him goes up over the centre. Behind, oh, magnificent mark taken by Dutton. Terry Lucas also takes a fine mark. Half-forward line for Launceston, McKim Marsh, who's reading the play beautifully from that position. Left foots the ball up towards the half-forward line, but another great mark has been taken by Lucas this time. Donaghy to Curran, and a valuable goal. The leader, Donaghy. And Donaghy grabs the loose ball off the hands of the pack. Hand passes to Curran. Curran shoots from centre half forward and is filled after he kicked it, but it is through for a goal. Mackerel, a quick reply for North. Jordan, North going forward. Jordan has one bounce. Now looks for support further upfield. Drives it up towards the 15-metre square. From behind, gathering the loose ball, is Mackerel. Mackerel runs into an open goal and puts another one through for the Robins. McCrimmon, a very damaging player for Launceston. It's not favourable. It favours Curran. Curran, a long hand pass towards McCrimmon. McCrimmon runs in from about the forward pocket for Launceston. Puts boot the ball, shoots, and puts through another one for the Blues. Francis Woolley marks well. On with play. Looking for Ricky Young. Big pack of players from behind. Francis Woolley takes the mark for Launceston. McCrimmon, a great snapshot. Backing him up, though, is McCrimmon. McCrimmon comes out with the ball. Shoots from the forward pocket. Just John McCrimmon. Shoots from an acute angle. And he's put it through for yet another goal to the Blues. The Blues on fire as Darren Davies goes. Towards Cook. Burrows his way through the pack. Hand pass to Parker. Parker in turn, hand pass to Davies. Darren Davies kicks the ball up towards the goal. Is it through? Yes.
North Launceston, Harper 4, Marsh 4, Maynard 3, and for Launceston, 11 superb goals from Donaghy and 3 from McCrimmon. Best players, Ricky Young, Jordan, Evans, Hughes, Hyatt, Tony Young, Marsh, and apologies to the rest. Donaghy for Launceston, Woolley, Lucas, Parker, Brand, McCrimmon, Walsh and Dutton.
And just a word about the 200 club you were going to say, Steve?
Yes, Ray. The 200 club in the NTFA is still running along quite well. And on grand final day, all the patrons that go through the gate will receive a coupon in their record that they buy, giving them the chance to win a watch on the compliments of the 200 club. The Hecksmith medalist will receive a coloured portrait of himself. So that's something for the medalist that he can put up on the mantelpiece or wherever he likes as a keepsake. So we're certainly pushing ahead with the 200 club,
yes.
Ray.
Tony, one thing, the umpires yesterday, especially young Kane, who was umpiring his first game, I thought in the circumstance, I think you may agree that they did a very, very good job.
Oh, yes, Ray. Look, I was very pleased, really. I know there's been a bit of controversy with the umpires over the past few weeks, and we did have a meeting between the coaches with Gary Davis, and I think out of that there has been some fruit there. We wasn't maligning the umpires in any way, but at any rate, it was great to see him bring Kane up. I've always thought he had the potential, and I think that without being nasty to anyone, this is a very positive step in the right mood to bring in some new umpiring blood.
Yeah.
They certainly won't do any worse than some of the others, and that, I don't mean it nastily, but they take the point.
And when you see 42 goals kicked in a final, it means that the game was flowing, and the umpires must have made their major contribution as well.
Yes, they were very fit and they kept up with the game, and they done an excellent job, right?
Good luck at the grand final.
Thanks very much.
Our NEC leading goal kicker, after which the program is named, of course, is Chris Reynolds from Penguin. The
But the goals of the second semi-final of the NTFA, and Donachie swoops on the ball at centre half forward and goals for the Blues. Donachie hand passes to Curran for another goal. Mackerel swooping off the top of the pack, goals for the Robins. McCrimmon on half forward receives the hand pass from Curran, gets around the North Launceston defender and steers it through. Moments later, McCrimmon again on half forward. Donachie gets it out to him, swings around on the right foot, and a goal. Davies from half forward, a long kick towards full forward, and it bounces through. To the Union now in the first semi-final, and Hills grabs the ball on half forward for Wynyard and kicks a great goal. Hudson at centre half forward, takes the ball off the front of the pack and chips it through. Templeton hand passes to Cooey coach Stephen Beaumont at centre half forward, and a 55-metre goal splits the middle. But the goal of the day in yesterday's round of games, McCrimmon on half forward for Launceston, kicking the goal from half forward.
Well done, Johnny. You made a major contribution to Launceston's effort yesterday. Unfortunately, they just let you down by 1 point, but no doubt you'll be back next week and hopefully for yourself the week after. But, John, on behalf of your effort...
Full forward saw Maynard take a great mark. Parker running back with a fly to the ball, pulls in a screamer on half forward. And then Dutton at centre half forward. Lucas at centre half back for the Blues. To the Union now, and Taylor leads and marks brilliantly. Stephen Cox takes a courageous mark on the half-back line for Wynyard. Gardam at full forward. Bays at full forward for Cooey. Bays again on half forward, a one-hander this time. Robbie Wright comes across the top of the pack. Gardam, Eastley in the centre square for Cooey. Bays again gets high. And Cox marks in the last line of defence.
Presented by our patron, Mr John Orchard, who does apologise for not being with us today. This goes to Robert, who was judged the best player on the ground by all 5 selectors in the game against the Union on Anzac Day. Congratulations, Robert.
Thanks very much, Russell. I'd just like to thank the
Launceston Club.
Dean, congratulations also go to you for achieving this Best and Fairest award. It's certainly a great thing to achieve so early in your career, and I'm sure it's the start of a very, very successful career in football for you. Congratulations to you and also to your club.
Thanks, Bill.
North Launceston 7-10-52, and in the reserves, Launceston 10-10-70 defeated East Launceston 7-13-55. And of course, in the big one, it was Scottsdale and Launceston, and to give us his report on the game, it's a welcome back to Richard Spencer, the former North Launceston and Tasmanian star.
Thank you very much, Ray.
How's that?
Yes, good.
Pink jacket and all.
Well, yesterday, before the game, Robbie Kerrison was playing his 100th game for Scottsdale, and Paul Ellis was playing his 249th for Launceston. The umpires for the game was John Lee Archer and David Heron, and I thought they did a very good job, Ray. The toss was won by Todd Lewis, kicked it in from May end, and was a 3-goal breeze. The conditions were overcast, and I thought that it'd probably rain, but it didn't. In the first quarter, I think, to sum it up in the first quarter, I think Scottsdale used a lot of strength, a lot of pressure to Launceston, and to my way of thinking in the first quarter, as far as Launceston go, if Robert Dutton hadn't been on the ground, I think they could have been in a lot of trouble. His marking power was very, very good. He kicked 3 or 4 goals in the first quarter, and I thought he's an excellent player for Launceston. But for mine, Scottsdale seemed to control the ball a lot more than Launceston. I think their strength was telling, and they just weren't able to score against the Brews.
Well, we have Francis Woolley with us, who was an outstanding player for Launceston yesterday. Dutton's influence on the game, particularly in that first quarter, must have lifted the side, Frank.
Yeah, we expect Robert to play well. His first half yesterday I thought was exceptional. I thought he really played well, took some very strong marks, as we know he can do, and hopefully he continue to do it.
Yeah, did you feel the pressure from Scottsdale, particularly in that first quarter?
First quarter, the pressure was tremendous. They really put pressure on us, chased, tackled, as we expect from Scottsdale. They're a very physical side.
Yet full marks to Launceston, as you just said previously. You showed a lot more purpose yesterday and attacked the ball.
Yeah, there's this thing with opposition clubs or supporters, I don't know, that with Launceston, that the weakness under pressure, we're as physical as any side in the competition. I think our direct attack to the ball. You know, if you attack the ball and kick it long and direct, you become a much more competent side.
Still, it's not bad ammunition for the coach to fire at the players, is it?
Oh, no, it's okay.
I certainly didn't think they lacked anything in that area yesterday, Ray. Even with Francis, who had a very, very good game in the first half, was putting his body in. I think that in the first quarter, Launceston poor kicking showed up. I don't know whether it was because of the bruise, but certainly because Dutton was on top, they had somebody to kick to. And Rosendale was winning the ball, and Jamie Dennis was winning the ball. But it was Launceston's half-back line of Lewis and Brand, and also Lucas, who was doing a great job on Martin as a tagger. They were repelling the ball, kicking it long, down to Dutton, down to Bellinger, and Launceston at the first quarter break, they kicked 5 goals 3 to Scottsdale's 3-1-19.
The second quarter was the quarter which won the game for Launceston virtually. Kicking against the breeze, they outscored the Magpies.
Well, actually, Ray, I thought actually in the second quarter that the wind had dropped. I didn't think it was a 3-goal breeze no more.
What do you think, Frank? Had the wind dropped being out there?
It appeared to drop away after half-time, definitely. You know.
And what about the second quarter?
Well, it was still gusting. It wasn't as strong as it was, but, you know, gusts.
But I think really the change came over the game, Ray, when Launceston wingers got on top, and young Parker and Davies. They really ran right, and certainly Francis Woolley Ruck Roving had a field day in the second quarter. I don't really know who's on him, but as far as I'm concerned, no one picked him up, and not that he's sitting beside me here today, Ray, but I think you've got to give credit where it's due, and I haven't seen really Francis play as well as that for quite a while.
Well, he had a good final series.
He has. He has played, especially yesterday anyway. Ellis was moved on to Lethborg into the centre, which was a good tag again. I think that Kerry Sanders yesterday, as coach at Launceston, was prepared to use his players a lot more. I think any player of Scottsdale was getting a top exception. The only exception was Jamie Dennis, because I think at one stage he ran about 80
He
yards
did,
there.
he just did it there.
And there was there's no player chasing. I think he had that much space. I think he's on a deserted island or something. But he got a free kick against him running too fast. But they were giving him plenty of yards. But they made a move, Scottsdale, in the second quarter, which was a good move. Denny Hall went ruck roving and certainly lifted the side. Wherever he was on the ground, he's a great player, Denny Hall. Kicked behind the play and played very well in the second quarter to get him back into the game. But at the end of the second quarter, Launceston had added 5 goals 2, 10-5-65, and Launceston had kicked 2 goals 3. When Launceston went into the half-time break with 31-point break, and certainly Francis Woolley had set the pattern, and Dutton, young Davies and Parker, and Todd Lewis was still playing well on the half-back flank. And at the break, they were 31 points up going into
What was your
half-time.
impressions then, Frank? Did you feel then that the side was playing better and could hold on?
Oh, definitely, Ray. We were confident at half-time. There's been sceptics about us after last week, but...
Well, with due respect too, I mean, last year's grand final, of course, you faded against North Launceston. There is something there to talk about.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But I was confident. I thought we could go on.
Did you feel that Scottsdale may have been weakening towards the end of that second quarter?
Oh, I don't know about weakening. I thought we were probably getting
Or the
on
pressure
top.
had been off slightly?
Maybe after halfway through the second quarter, probably the pressure was off a little bit, but they played very well. Danny Hall was magnificent, I thought.
What about the second half, Nick?
Well, in the second half, they came out after half-time. There was virtually no wind at all, Ray, and for mine, Scottsdale tried really late in the quarter to get a bit of a run on, and actually the siren went and I think it stopped their run on a bit, but they... to mine, Launceston, I was talking about earlier in the game about Scottsdale's strength. I think Launceston exerted a lot of strength in the third quarter. I don't know what Kerry said to them at three-quarter time, but they certainly put themselves in, and players that weren't in the game started to come into the game, such as Bellinger at the centre half forward came into the game. Donegal, even though he was felled early in the game, came back into the game, kicked a couple of good goals. Wasn't sided much early in the game. The half-back line was still on top and exerting a lot of pressure. I think even Walsh, I think, was beaten all day. He tried hard all day. Burke was...
Yeah, would you say he was beaten all day, would you?
I convinced me. I thought Rosendale did very well yesterday.
Yeah, he was one of Scottsdale's better players, but Walsh made a fair contribution. Frank, would you say or not?
I thought he played very well, Ray. Roos is a very, very good ruckman, and I thought Wally nullified him to a degree. I mean, Jamie and Roos have worked very well together, and I thought he played quite well.
Yeah, OK, well, difference of opinion.
Sure, that's what we're here for.
That's right. But Rosendale was certainly, for mine, was a very, very good player because Jamie Dennis, had a ball, as I say. But it was just, for mine, at half-time, they were struggling. And after the third quarter break, Launceston added 6 goals, to Scottsdale's 4-4. And Launceston went in the change with a 40-point break, and I think really, Ray, it was going to take a lot for Scottsdale to get up from there.
Now, here was a fine passage of play you'll see on screen there now as Launceston carried the ball right from the full-back position and they kicked the goal out of it. And that, to me, showed the confidence they were playing at that stage. It was just towards the end of the second quarter. There's Frank now. Todd Lewis had backed up nicely, and Darren Davies had also run about 50 metres. Handballs to Paul Ellis, and out he comes, and there's the lead by... that was a wonderful passage of play, but it showed that Launceston was starting to click then, and they were playing very, very confidently and running, Dick.
Yes, they certainly played a different sort of game yesterday. They played a game that was going to win for mine games in York Park. They kicked the ball very long. They kicked the ball well to players, especially after the first quarter. They had players leading, and with their height, with Dutton and Bellinger, and especially Donaghy, they had players to kick the ball to, and they used it a lot better, whereas I think the game against North, the second semi-final, they was under a little bit more pressure, so they kicked the ball short and they made a lot of mistakes.
What do you feel now, Frank? Next week you face up again to North Launceston. Do you think that you might have broken through the barrier yesterday of winning a big one? I'm asking a silly question again.
Yeah. I mean, grand finals are there to be won, obviously. You don't go into a grand final thinking you're not going to win, so we'll just take it as it comes and give it our best shot.
Any bad injuries out of yesterday's game?
No, none at all. No.
OK, let's see some edited highlights from the match yesterday, the clash at York Park between Launceston and Scottsdale. Strongly. And Launceston stream off that half-back line up here towards the half-forward line. Coming through and taking a strong mark, Bellinger. Dutton scores the first goal for the Blues.
Woolley gets the handball away over to Cook. Cook goes up to centre half forward, and up high for Launceston with 7 in Davies. Davies couldn't get it, quickly picked up for Launceston by Dutton.
Strong mark by Tony Power, who kicked the Magpies' first goal from the kick.
Picked up Dave Dennis. He gets it over to Timo, who kicks up forward, and a great mark for Power.
Donaghy scores the easiest of goals.
On the broadcast side of the ground. Pack weights down. Up they go. The ball comes out. Ellis quick, picks it up, goes for the handball. Gets it over to his teammate in Bellinger. Bellinger onto the left boot. And Donaghy waiting, goes in and takes the easiest of goal, and Launceston second.
Lethborg takes a fine mark.
From that full-back position, there's the right foot drop punt kick coming out towards half-back. Lethborg makes position and marks well.
Jamie Dennis scores a valuable goal against the Breeze.
Around about 10 metres from goal, and he will have this direct shot. Into about a 3-goal Breeze. As he moves in, there's the kick, and there's the goal. And that's a lucky one as far as I'm... Well, it's not lucky, it's a good goal, but certainly Launceston should never have fallen for that.
Dutton, the opportunist, kicks one from the goal square.
Launceston now work the ball once forward, but Wagner working now hard for Scottsdale. The ball's still in open spaces. Kicked off the ground, goes for a goal, and it's going to be a major.
And it was Dutton to mark again and kick his fourth goal.
Deep into the square. He goes for the drop punt, directs it right up forward there. Up high for Dutton.
Danny Hall scores an easy goal for the Magpies.
Ellis couldn't do anything constructive with the ball. Now Martin once again tries to punch over. Hall picks it up, lines up, has it got at the goals, and that's a goal.
Bellinger marks strongly and goals from the kick. Parker as Launceston go forward. A little bit indecisive. Parker kicked with his left boot now up towards the half-forward line. High. Oh, great mark. Brought down by Bellinger. Donaghy marks cleverly and scores another. Dutton will kick long up towards the edge of the 15-metre square. Players set themselves in front. One-handed mark. Strong mark. Donaghy. Launceston on fire as Francis Woolley scores.
And again, right foots it in towards the half-forward line, looking for Woolley. Woolley's got to run for the ball. It's bounced beautifully for him. He's going to screw it around, and there's a magnificent goal, Woolley.
A fine passage of play by Launceston ends in a goal to Donaghy.
Davies taps the ball nicely towards Lewis. Lewis has one bounce. Now he has two. Long hand pass to Woolley. Launceston going forward. Good play by Woolley. Hand passes towards Lewis. And they drive going forward, Launceston. Lewis from the forward pocket. Hand passes towards Ellis. He'll kick short towards the lead of Donaghy. And Donaghy takes the mark. 15 metres out, capping off a great passage of play and a great chance to bring up another goal for the Blues.
Yesterday for Launceston was Dutton, who kicked 5, Donaghy 4, Bellinger 4, and for Scottsdale, Power 3, Wood 3 and Dennis 3. For the better players, Robert Dutton, an excellent game yesterday, especially with his marking Power Raymond while he's on the forward line or playing on the ball. Francis Woolley, an excellent game for Francis, a good game all day. John McCrimmon, who went from a half-forward flank in the third quarter, went into the centre, completely dominated the game in the last quarter, which is certainly never let Scottsdale get back into the game through his play just on his own in the last quarter. I thought young Parker played very well on the wing. Davies also played well on the wing, and I give Terry Lucas a big rap for his excellent job he done on Greg Martin yesterday, because Greg Martin's completely blanketed out of the game and usually a great player for Scottsdale. For Scottsdale, I thought Jamie Dennis was a very good player all day. Roosendale played very well in the ruck when he went to centre half back. Daniel for his excellent contribution when he went onto the ball as a ruck rover. Greg Lethball tried hard all day, as he does always. Scott Wood for his 3 goals when he came off the interchange bench. And I also give Tony Power a bit of a rap because the amount of opportunities he had, I thought he did quite well. But in the last quarter, as I said, McCrimmon took over in the centre of the ground. I think it was all over. And I give credit to Launceston for their good 4 quarters yesterday. They increased the lead all the way from the first quarter right through. They kicked 5-3 in the last quarter to 4-1 to Scottsdale, and we ran out the game winning by 8 goals. Ray, and I think it's really set the pattern for a great final at York Park. I think in the second semi-final, I think players such as Brand, Lucas, Lewis, Bellinger, I thought was short of a gallop, and I think they ran out of legs. I think they've because they played so well yesterday, they've got their confidence back. I think it's going to be good for Launceston, and also probably on Launceston credit. I think that they've lost the second semi, but they've won the preliminary final, so in my book they're probably better off. But then again, on North's credit side, they were 6 goals behind the 3-quarter time of the second semi. They came back to a 19 points, and at that stage, at the 16-minute mark, there was 19 points in front with players like Shane Young and Brett Hughes off the ground, and Mickey Elmer wasn't playing. So to my way of thinking, that's to North's credit, so I think it's set the scene for a good, and I'd like to see 10,000 people at York Park next week.
Well, Frank, the very best of luck to you. Thank you for coming up, and also congratulations on your personal effort too in the final series so far. Would you agree with the better players that Dick has given?
Yeah, good. Johnny McCrimmon, I thought, was excellent second half.
Also, Raymond, I'd just like to put a little plug in for the Launceston Grand Final breakfast next week at Windsor Park, and also for the North Launceston Grand Final breakfast at York Park. And certainly if people, members of both sides, go to the grand final breakfast at 8 o'clock, it's going to sort of set the pattern for the
They tell me you're taking Eve on to the North Launceston breakfast next week, aren't you?
She never invited me.
Did you? Open invitation, Dick. OK, the final score yesterday saw Launceston 21-9, 135 to Scottsdale 13-9, 87. And we'll be back in a moment with some of the goals which were kicked yesterday. Dutton again takes the opportunity from the goal square. Francis Woolley scores again as the Blues were on fire in the second quarter. Now to the coast, and Cracknell, following up play, scores a good goal for Wynyard. Carpenter shows his dash and accuracy against the breeze. Viney also scores a nice goal from the flank. French caps off a fine passage of play with this goal. And Scott Johnson was a fine contributor for Wynyard. But the goal of the day goes to the big fellow Robert Dutton, who kicked 5 goals for Launceston and was a focal point up forward all day. Well, Power playing in front, also marks strongly. Greg Lethball shows great judgment. Dutton supreme in the air all day. Ian Donaghy marks coolly under pressure. Now to the coast, and Michael Gale, strong mark up forward. John Eamon leads his side by example. Wayne Viney showed fine judgment to mark in the square. Garth Barrett gave Penguin an edge in the aerial duels. Chris Reynolds marks close to the boundary. And his brother-in-law, Tim Allen, shows great courage to mark here. Chris Hennessy, strong mark in a pack. Reynolds again shows his aerial skills. And the mark of the day goes to Tim Allen, who led his side well yesterday and showed great courage and endeavour to take this mark. We're hoping for big crowds at this week's grand finals of the Union and the Association to cap off what has been a satisfying season so far. The Union expects about 10,000 people to attend West Park for the Penguin-Smithton clash, whilst at least 8,000 are expected to attend York Park for the NTFA Grand Final between North Launceston and Launceston. There's fierce rivalry between these two teams, although North have had the edge over Launceston so far, having beaten them on every occasion this season, including a magnificent comeback in the second semi-final, when North came back after trailing by 41 points late in the third quarter to win the match by 1 point. Launceston were bitterly disappointed over that defeat, as they showed with a fine performance against Scottsdale last week, particularly in the second half, to win the preliminary final comfortably. They also showed a fiercer desire for the ball against a somewhat undermanned Scottsdale, but whether they can continue that pattern of play against North, that question remains still to be answered. North are proven finals performers, with several fine running players, including Michael Elmer, who makes a return to the team following a period of suspension. However, North's pace could be offset by the high marking power of Launceston, led by Robert Dutton, an outstanding finals performer. The match should provide a great combination to the season. At West Park, Smithton are likely to start warm favourites to defeat Penguin. Both sides have been excellent finals performers in recent years, but there's an old saying in football that big men win the big games, and Smithton have an overall abundance of big players like Ward, Maguire, the Korbachek brothers and Scott Knights. They're all well over 6 feet and are strong marks. These players are well backed up by middle-sized running players, and under the leadership of Peter Ivanoff, they are a well-disciplined combination. Penguin, however, cannot be taken lightly, and if Chris Reynolds can turn on one of his better games, then a win by the Blues would come as no surprise. However, their lack of overall big man strength may tell against them in what is sure to prove a tough encounter. And still on football, a full committee meeting of the NTFA late this afternoon disqualified the Launceston Football Club's reserve team from playing in Saturday's Reserves Grand Final against North Launceston. The decision was reached after it was found that Launceston player Malcolm Atkins, who was a member of the club's reserves team
last Saturday's grand final. Mr Justice Cox this afternoon reserves his decision on an application by Launceston for an injunction against the NTFA to overturn the disqualification of the club's reserve.
Will be between North Launceston and East Launceston. This follows a decision handed down this morning by Mr Justice Cox to refuse an injunction by the Launceston club against the NTFA to overturn the disqualification of the club's reserve team. The reserves grand final is timed to commence at 11:45 and preceded by the under-19 grand final between North Launceston and East Launceston. And still on footy, tomorrow, of course, is the culmination of the football season in northern Tasmania, with grand finals being played in both the NTFA and North Western Football Union. In the north, it's North Launceston versus Launceston at York Park, and in the Union, it's Smithton versus Penguin at West Park. Smithton and most areas of Circular Head are expected to be near deserted tomorrow as the loyal supporters of the Saints make their way to West Park to see the battle against Penguin for the Union title. It's the third successive grand final for Smithton, which is a magnificent record considering their short time in the Union football. And they're very strong favourites to win their second title in the 3 years, after earlier accounting for Penguin in the second semi-final. Their well-balanced side of big men, high-marking key position players, fast-moving flankers and rovers gives the Saints a well-balanced lineup. Certainly they'll be well led by captain coach Peter Ivanoff, who expressed confidence that the team realises its responsibilities.
Well, we're certainly not going to be overconfident. That's one thing I have stressed, and the players realise that. They went into the game last year with an overconfidence problem, and it cost them dearly. But this year we realise it's going to be a really hard game, and the best team will win on the day.
Penguin, like Smithton, is mostly a team from the local area, and they've gained a well-deserved reputation of a team of fighters who are never more dangerous than when they're down and facing adversity. They'll be the underdogs in the clash, but that is likely to bring out the very best in the team. They're consistent finals performers in recent years, but their last premiership was back in 1980, with their possible lack of big men strength being a reason why their record of premierships is not better. They lack real big man strength tomorrow, but if their key position players in Tim Allen, century goal kicker in Chris Reynolds, centre half-back Bill Fielding, ruck rover Garth Barrett and speedy Stephen Wilcox strikes form, then the final should be a memorable one with little between the two sides at the finish. The NTFA Grand Final should be a bitter contest between the long-standing rivals Launceston and North, with Launceston now even more determined following the disqualification of their reserves team and the sponsorship troubles earlier in the season. They've made several positional changes to the team, which was defeated by North Launceston in the second semi-final. The main ones being follower Robert Burke to the interchange bench, Terry Lucas to centre half-back, Michael Cook to the centre, Francis Woolley to the half-forward line and Robert Dutton to the first ruck. Launceston, after being 6 goals in front in last year's grand final against Scottsdale and 41 points ahead of North in the second semi-final but being beaten on both times, are determined to rectify their defeats. And with their big man strength and high marking power around the ground, they'll be worthy opponents for North. North Launceston have defeated Launceston on every occasion so far this season. But there was no complacency at training last night with seniors and reserves all realising the importance of tomorrow's clash. North have named a predictable lineup with the return of top-class player Michael Elmer to the centre and including John Hardstaff as a ruck rover to add more pace. They've also taken out an insurance by naming big ruckman Ricky Lovett on the bench. This will ensure them of more marking power should Launceston take over the aerial duels and will also add more physical power should the going get tough. North have a number of young players playing in their first senior grand final, but Coach Tony Young believes they would not be overawed.
Most of them had experience with the thirds and the reserves, and we've been very fortunate North that we've had good sides coming through that's played in premierships. But it's a different story when you play senior football, and I think that might have been a little bit of our trouble last time in that second semi. I'm not making excuses, we don't make excuses at North, but I think that some just got a little bit overawed when the pressure come on. I think that's the big thing that the young bloke...
And the reserves from its grand final. Launceston's also in the seniors premiership. This dispute has led to the NTFA's Vice President, Graham Harris, Legal Advisor Ray Bailey, and Tribunal and Legal Man Tim Ellis to all resign for what Harris describes as victimisation of the Launceston Football Club. The Blues have not been in good relations with the NTFA this season, following a sponsors dispute, and this week a $1,000 fine being imposed on it for factors of behaviour emanating from the dispute and for leaving the change rooms at the finals venue in a deplorable state. NTFA President Bill Luck denies the association is crumbling and says this week should bind the NTFA tighter.
In fact, things like this happening, I believe, tend to strengthen an organisation, and that's what this will do. It's high time that the NTFA were united in a strong way, and the problems that we've had will make that strength far greater than it's been in the past.
Following the disqualification of the reserves, rumours have been floating about town that the seniors would forfeit and the reserves turn up tomorrow to leave 3 teams competing for the seconds flag. But Launceston has its success since 1977. Following this week of controversy, Coach Kerry Sanders says there's never been more incentive for a team.
This club wanted ammunition. The ammunition's been given to them probably all year, probably more so this week. But we're here to win a senior grand final. I am a senior coach.
Launceston's opponents, North, has been abnormally quiet this month, playing just 1 game. The Robins staged an incredible comeback against Launceston in the second semi-final after being 6 goals down at three-quarter time. They rushed home to win by a point, putting them in a position to win 2 grand finals in 3 years. Coach Tony Young says he's not concerned at his lack of match practice and believes North can win its 25th premiership.
That's the old adage everyone says, but I bet you if you asked every coach would they like to finish on top and get there in a grand final, they'd all like to say yes, I reckon. There wouldn't be very many who'd like to play right through. We've trained hard, and I believe playing's mentally. And if you're not mentally prepared for the game, well then nothing else will drive your legs. So you've got to have your brain right, and I think we're pretty right up top.
Well, I've just spoken with the coach of Launceston, and he says he's going to tear you limb from limb again. Well, what do you think about that comment?
Well, I don't want to get torn into slanging matches. I know Kerry Sanders personally.
Northwestern Football Union as we check the grand final scores. And first of all in the Union, in the under-19s it was Wynyard 15-13 to Cooey 14-8. In the reserves a 47-point victory to Devonport 14-12 over Latrobe's 7-7. Whilst in the seniors it was the Blues, Penguin 21-9, 135 defeating Smithton 13-9, 87. Brett McMullen cops one high and the free kick.
First use of the ball, he gets it over to Brett McMullen. McMullen dodges, turns, cops one far too high. And
Chris Reynolds marked spectacularly.
Was well down the ground. Oh, the fly! What a superb mark, Chris Reynolds.
So too does Smithton leader Peter Ivanov.
The ball now at centre half back. He'll drop punt the ball into the centre of the ground. Up go the big man. Oh, beautiful mark taken by Ivanov. Did he stand his ground?
Judge. Peter French marks in the square and goals.
Forward 15 metres out, screws it over his shoulder, and French's mark right on the line.
Thorpe hits the post for the Saints.
Pass goes out wide to Thorpe. Thorpe swings onto the left foot. The long kick towards goal. It's coming back, but he's offline and one behind only.
French scores another one for the 2 Blues.
He'll bang it in towards the Reynolds direction. Up goes Corpershot. Over the back towards Reynolds. Picked up on that occasion by French and number 2.
Lavelle marks in the square and goals.
He's going to look for Reynolds. He's got the drop on them. Up they go, and it's a mark once again. Who is it in the forward line? Is it Robbie Lavelle?
Scott Knight marks for the Saints on the line and goals.
Towards goal is going to land. Scotty Knights has taken the mark.
In the NTFA in the under-19s, it was Longford 21-13, easily accounting for East Launceston 13-10. And East were also losers in the reserves, going down to North Launceston 19-11, 125 to 8-10, 58. And in the seniors, in a magnificent third-quarter burst, Launceston won their premiership quite convincingly over North Launceston, as the score indicates. Launceston 19-22, 136, defeating North Launceston 12-11, 83. A bounce down in the goal square, and Donaghy scores for the Blues.
Towards a player in Donaghy, and Donaghy has first snap at the goals. and he's put it through for first blood to the Blues.
From this throw-in, and Jackson snaps truly for North Launceston.
Down straight to Jackson. Jackson quickly on the run. He screws it around nicely, right through, and it's a goal. One apiece.
From the centre bounce, and the dangerous Mackerel scores a great goal.
By Dutton, picked up there by Whitford. Whitford's going to go wide. There's the kick towards half forward, looking for Mackerel. Mackerel's taken the mark behind play, has a long shot in towards goal. It looks good. It is good. It's a goal. A magnificent goal from Stephen Mackerel.
It was typical grand final football, and a number of reports from this incident.
To take possession. Tempers a little bit frayed there. Brand is in there, and so too is Thurlow. There's plenty of weight's been used, pushing and shoving. Hill comes in quickly and throws his weight around, and players getting into the action. And there's also a second scrimmage in the centre of the ground where umpire Fellows runs back to see what's happening. Ballinger's the one that's down on the centre of the ground.
Neil Maynard takes a strong mark from which he kicked the goal.
Maynard, the lead is to Maynard. Maynard sets himself in a magnificent mark taken by Maynard.
Donaghy again reads the play well and scores from the square.
He finds Ellis going past, gives it to Ellis. Ellis on the run, shoots at the forward line. Over the back there quickly is Donaghy, left-footed Donaghy, and it's through.
And that was one of Ian Donaghy's 4 goals for the grand final. In the TANFL, it was the Magpies Glenorchy, 10-15-75, in a tremendous struggle, just defeating Clarence by the 4 points, 10-11-71. Well, it was preliminary final day in the Victorian Football League, the clash between Footscray and Hawthorn. With a full report on the game, it's good evening to Sandy Roberts. The reserves grand final. Just checking those 2 scores, the under-19s went to Longford, a very fine team of young players, and the future for the Tigers does look exceptionally good, with Longford 21-13, 139 to East Launceston 13-10, 88. In the reserves, it was North Launceston 19-11, 125, easily accounting for East Launceston 8-10, 58. Of course, the big one at 2:30 after the presentations of medals and other opening ceremonies. Let's go to Graham Wilkinson now for his thoughts on the first half of yesterday's grand final.
Yes, Ray, well, what a magnificent grand final we saw at the York Park Oval yesterday to finish off the 85 season. There was a magnificent atmosphere, of course, with an enormous crowd at the ground, and that's something that we really appreciated, that the public had come out to support these 2 fine teams in their endeavour for the Cup. And there was a real tense feeling around the ground, and certainly that must have got through to the players. Because when they came out to stand for the national anthem, there was plenty of eyeball-to-eyeball confrontations taking place across from each other, and you could really sense that there was going to be an explosive opening to this game. I thought that Heron and Fellows really knew that this was on, and they thought that they were in for plenty, and they got it during the afternoon. But there's more to come about those 2 men later on in the summary, because they did a magnificent job. But North have made many changes to their side from what they had placed in the paper, of course. Hardstaff going to the back pocket and Marsh out to the flank and Whitford into the centre. Lovett coming into the side to add a bit of strength to that area. And with Elmer going to ruck roving, it looked like the old North Launceston combination. As you can see on the screen there, the feelings did get out of control quite a lot of times during the game. But this is what makes football the exciting spectacle that it is. And really, although some of the incidents got a little bit over the odds, when this goes out of football, I'm not talking about the actual punching, but when aggression and physical confrontation go out of football, where you can shut the gates because there'll be nobody there to watch it anyway.
Just while we're talking about that incident on camera at the moment, Kerry Sanders is here. Kerry, you said to me this morning that you thought you won the game in the first 10 minutes, and that's when that incident occurred.
Yes, Ray, I thought our persistence in the first 10 minutes, if we were able to persist and keep at the ball, and overcome any physical pressure, we would be well on our way.
But you were expecting some heavy physical stuff early?
Oh, you do that in any grand final, Ray.
Well, I think that really, Ray, that's part and parcel of the game. As much as North dished out a bit, well, there was plenty coming from the Blues too. They really took all the pressure and they returned that as well. So really both sides knew that there was going to be physical confrontations and they both stood up to it. And really Launceston did a lot to... A lot of people said that they're handbaggers, and there's no good saying one thing and mean another. That has been the image that's been planted on the Launceston Football Club. And yesterday they went a long way towards throwing that mantle off, because they took a heck of a lot of punishment and dished out a little bit themselves, but they were steadfast in their approach and they proved what a good side they were.
Would you agree that your players attacked the ball more yesterday than probably any other time this season, Kerry?
Oh, right throughout the final series, Ray, even the second semi when we lost by a point, I thought our endeavour at the ball has been absolutely tremendous.
Well, we'll put it a different way then. The breaks went your way better yesterday than probably what they have done throughout the rest of the season.
A lot of luck plays a big part in finals.
Stephen Howe, our Heck Smith medalist. Stephen, what was your impression, particularly of that first quarter, which many people believe is to be one of the best first quarters that's been seen in NTFA football for many, many seasons?
Well, it'd have to be one of the most physical quarters I've ever seen, but just Launceston were they were just far too good on the day.
Yeah, from a big man's point of view, would you have liked to have been out there contesting some of those issues?
Oh, I'd love to have been out there, yep, for sure.
Well, Ray, early in the game, of course, Donachie got the first big one for the Blues to give them a good confident start to the game, but really North came into their own in the middle stages of the first quarter, and they had some superb players. I thought that they got their game going after the pent-up feelings erupted at about the 8-minute mark. And when Jackson got a beautiful goal, Mackerel kicked a superb one from the flank, and they were well on the way. And with these running players that we've come to know of North had a good pattern going and really looked to be composed, even though they had sort of put the pressure on Launceston. I thought that with this pattern going and their smaller players doing particularly well, Launceston were struggling to some degree. I thought that Donachie was a real handful up front for Loon and always threatening danger. His ability to lose players and defenders has been renowned over the years. He's a great tacticianer, and he kicked accurately to give Launceston some heart. And the move that was made midway through the quarter, which is typical of Launceston's play this year, to place Dutton at centre-half forward was a winner, because he quickly established himself in that area and showed the Blues that if they were prepared to kick the ball long, that they had a chance to have a sure avenue to goal.
Kerry, was there any reason why you started off with Robert in the ruck rather than at centre-half forward, where he has been for most of the final series?
Robert's been carrying a back injury for a long, long time, and it's an old one. We thought that we'd start him off on the ball to get him warmed up.
Yeah.
In actual fact, he doesn't play at centre-half forward. He actually plays in a forward pocket.
With a roving commission.
No, he actually stands across that centre-half forward line, releasing Glenn Bellinger to sort of move around a little bit more.
It's a bit of a luxury, isn't it, having those two really high flyers in the side, particularly up forward?
It's nice to have three big players, actually, and to be able to place them like Robert Burke in a back pocket to do a lot of the ruck work back there, Tony Walsh to do our centre tapping and or Dutton, and then to have the major up on the forward line to take the big grabs. It's tremendous.
Some would say that you have been top-heavy, but that was disproved yesterday.
Well, if you look at Wally Walsh, he can almost rove to his own taps.
We have John McCrimmon up the end up there. John, it's a new place for you on the forward line where you've done most of your football on the wing. What's it like being up there with those three big fellows around and you can feed off them?
It makes it a lot easier, Ray, especially with the major there. He creates a lot of opportunities for you, and you can sort of rely on him all the time, which helps a bit.
Yes, you like to take a fair mark yourself at times, don't you?
When things are right, I don't mind, but I'm quite prepared to allow the big blokes to do it.
So I ask you this, and I don't mean to be rude or anything in that way, that's probably not the right word to use, but when that skirmish was going on down the other end of where you were normally positioned, what were the thoughts going through your head at the time?
I thought I'd best leave alone, Ray.
Best leave well alone?
Yeah.
Well, Ray, of course, in the first quarter, I thought that once the game really got rolling and the football returned to normal, North's little men, I thought that Jackson and Ricky Young were doing exceptional work for their side, and with the backup they were receiving from Mackerel, who got an enormous amount of kicks out in the open and did some great work with the ball, and Elmer, they had a very good thing going, and I thought their back line, where Hardstaff and Marsh and Hughes were doing quite great work for them, they looked quite solid. And really, as I said, there were some great highlights in the first quarter. I thought the mark that Harper took in the centre of the ground was a superb effort, and of course Bellinger's mark soon after was a great one as well.
We have both of those on film shortly.
Yes, so really the crowd got their money's worth in the first quarter. They got a bit of physical attractions to watch, but they also saw the great facets that football can exhibit, and they really had some great highlights. I thought that the fellow on the end of the panel there, John McCrimmon, also chipped in, put in a superb effort in the goal square area late in the quarter to lift the Blues, and really they trailed by 10 points. And at this stage, the main ingredients of North was their speed, because they did lack height, and this was apparent if you look at the statistics of both teams when they line up. that Launceston did have the great advantage of extra height that Walsh and Dutton and also Burke had over their counterparts in Evans and Hyatt.
Kerry, just while we're talking there, John Hardstaff, who was given the job of minding John there for the greater part of the first half, did a pretty good job, although John did slip away from him on a couple of occasions.
He did. He played John very, very close, played him like a glove, like a true tagger should. And John found it very difficult to be able to move round freely on the forward line like he normally does. But again, I give credit to Ian Donachie and was able to stay down at times, and he uses his body to shepherd out, and John was able to take several top marks in the goal square and kick good goals.
Stephen, we were talking just before that whilst Launceston had looked to have the big advantage in the ruck, young Mark Evans was doing a very good job and jumping pretty high for North and contesting the issues.
Yes, I thought he played a very good game for most of the day. He seemed to win his share of the taps in the centre, but they didn't capitalise on it.
John, it was a very good first quarter, but what was the breeze like out there? Was it fluky? Was it strong? And which end do you think it was favouring?
Actually, after the game, I said to one of the blokes, I said, what way was the wind blowing? Because we seemed to be kicking most of our goals against the wind. It was a bit of a fluky breeze, really. I don't think there was really one end that sort of favoured the other, myself.
Kerry, what did you feel about the breeze out there yesterday? Did you have to change your plans at all when you saw which way it was blowing? It was an easterly or a southeasterly there very early.
It was a southeasterly, Ray, which we were fairly lucky. We played with that southeasterly breeze against Scottsdale the week before. Yeah. So it's virtually suited us. We played basically the same style of game.
Well, North led by 10 points at quarter time. Could they hold on to the lead or increase it second quarter, Graham?
Well, they certainly looked like they would, Ray, in the early part of the second quarter. As I saw it, I thought that the Launceston half-forward line, where they now had Dutton playing there as a permanent fixture and Bellinger on the half-forward flank, contributed to their inability to get the ball forward because they constantly came well up the field. I thought that on occasions Glenn Bellinger came across in front of Dutton, and the half-forward line for Launceston seemed to me to be well up into the centre of the ground. And with North doing a lot of attacking, there was a sort of a natural barrier there when the ball was coming out of the fence for it to go back in, because both Dutton and Bellinger were crowding each other, and they really didn't get the ball delivered to them well, because North's smaller men, I felt, were still controlling the game, and the Ruck Rovers, as I mentioned in that first quarter, still were doing the job for the North team. I thought the centre line duels were fairly even. I thought that the ball didn't really go much in the direction of young Jordan for him to use his pace, but certainly Davies and Shane Young had a tremendous battle, and they both contributed to their side's effort during the second quarter.
Kerry, was it your plan to avoid the wings and go straight down the centre?
No, I'm a big believer in playing corridor football, and no matter what, particularly on the bigger grounds. And it just so happened yesterday that North didn't take the ball very wide, nor did we, so consequently you bypassed the wings a lot and you basically used half-back, half-forward lines.
Yeah, and yet it's been North's flankers and those fast-moving players that have been probably giving most of them their drive throughout the season.
Well, that's where they played so very well in the second semi, and really they played quite well, but it was their Rovers and their Ruck Rovers that were doing a lot of work early in the game yesterday.
Wilkie, when did you think the turning point came in that second quarter?
Well, it came at about the 12-minute mark, as far as I could see, Ray, because a pattern started to emerge whereby North were winning the ball with their medium-sized players that I've mentioned, who are the playmakers for North and do so much damage with the ball. The fine conditions and Launceston's pattern started to take effect with Dutton at centre-half forward. Now, at about the 15-minute mark, Launceston started to kick the ball longer, and Bellinger started to work better as a half-forward flanker in his relationship with Dutton, and when Dutton didn't take the big mark, Bellinger was the scouter, and he supplied the pace, and and Dutton supplied the aerial power. And at about the 15-minute mark, Launceston started to get a pattern going, and with Donachie doing very well up front, they had control of the forward line and really got the game going.
And that was when John McCrimmon came in vitally into the game in that second quarter, and also Darren Davies, who had been playing well for you, particularly in the first quarter, carried on that good work, Kerry.
That's right, Ray, yes.
Yeah, well, Davies kicked a good goal to sort of get the Blues rolling, yes. And, you know, they had staggered a little bit, but then they really got the momentum up in the last quarter of an hour, and at half-time, they'd had, they had 9 shots to North's 4 in the second quarter, and really had established a 3-point lead. Now, as much as Kerry has said in the paper, we've read this morning, that it was surprising that they were in front at half-time after having so little to play. That was pretty true and indicative of the feeling of most of the people watching the game, I believe.
Yet Launceston could have had an even more substantial advantage if you had a kick straight, Kerry, because you missed some 2 or 3 very, very easy shots virtually from the goal square.
2 very easy shots, but the other shots, a couple of posters, give credit to North. They applied a lot of pressure to our players on our forward line to make them miss kick. Plus, that breeze was a little bit fluky early with that southeasterly wind blowing. But we were very surprised, and in actual fact, I was disappointed in our players at half-time. It was only their persistence and a little bit of luck that led us up there.
Stephen, what were your thoughts of that first half?
Well, it was just that once Dutton was taken out of the ruck and put to centre half forward, they just had that many avenues through the forward line. They just tore them apart there.
Yeah. And you can see Launceston starting to roll as a team on both wings. They were coming down in waves, weren't they, in that second quarter?
Yeah, the centre line was driving it long, and they had so many avenues. If Dutton, they didn't specifically kick it to one person, they were looking for, the other avenues as well.
And they were getting great drive at that stage from their middle-sized players in Francis Woolley, Darren Davies, and Michael Cook too, particularly. They were kicking the ball a lot longer, Kerry, than what they have been. Well, it appeared that they were kicking the ball longer.
Our disposal in the first half was atrocious onto our forward line, and a lot of it came from across our half-back line, and they were able to settle down and deliver the ball how it should be delivered onto our forward line. I think that made a lot of difference.
It comes from confidence, though, doesn't it?
Oh, very much so.
OK, at half-time there was only 3 points of difference. As we look now at some of the edited highlights from that first half, including some of those magnificent marks. A bounce down in the goal square, and Donaghy scores for the Blues.
Towards a player in Donaghy, and Donaghy has first snap at the goals. And he's put it through for first blood to the Blues.
From this throw-in, Jackson snaps truly for North Launceston.
Down straight to Jackson. Jackson quickly on the run. He screws it around nicely. Right through, and it's a goal. 1 apiece.
From the centre bounce, and the dangerous Mackerel scores a great goal.
By Dutton, picked up there by Whitford. Whitford's going to go wide. There's the kick towards half forward, looking for Mackerel. Mackerel's taken the mark behind play, has a long shot in towards goal. It looks good. It is good. It's a goal. A magnificent goal from Stephen Mackerel.
It was typical grand final football, and a number of reports from this incident.
To take possession. Tempers a little bit frayed there. Brand is in there, and so too is Thurlow. There's plenty of weights being used, pushing and shoving. Hill comes in quickly and throws his weight around, and players getting into the action. And there's also a second scrimmage in the centre of the ground where umpire Fallows runs back to see what's happening. Ballinger's the one that's down on the centre of the ground.
Neil Maynard takes a strong mark from which he kicked the goal.
The leaders to Maynard. Maynard sets himself in a magnificent mark taken by Maynard.
Donaghy again reads the play well and scores from the square.
He finds Ellis going past, gives it to Ellis. Ellis on the run, shoots at the forward line. Over the back there quickly is Donaghy, left-footed Donaghy, and it's through.
Thurlow takes a strong mark in defence.
Knocked the ball away, but Mackerel marks it. He handballs clearly to Hughes. He runs his full distance, kicks deep centre forward. Maynard in front. Burke, but from behind. Thurlow just hung in the air and took a very well judged mark.
A great passage of play by North results only in a behind to Jackson.
He knocked it out to Henderson. Henderson dives on it. He scoops it out nicely to Hyatt. Hyatt with a quick handball to Hughes. He knocks it on into the air. Young leading in the race to the ball. He's got it. He knocks it on quickly to Mackerel. Mackerel quickly on again to Lovett. Lovett quickly into the air to Jackson. He goes around Berkey. He lines up. Jackson on the run. Chips it in. Oh, what a shame from good play.
Bellinger marks spectacularly.
Towards Curran. He's got plenty of time to steady. Then left foots the ball up towards the half-forward line. Oh, magnificent mark. Bellinger.
Darren Harper takes one of the fine marks of the game.
Deep into the centre. Harper up from behind. 1-2. What's he going to pay? He did.
The ever-dangerous Mackerel scores again.
Down to the ground it goes. Mackerel recovers. He's got plenty of time. He lines up. He chips. And it's home.
McCrimmon is paid the mark from which he scores a goal.
The half-forward line. A long kick up towards the goal square. Getting high. McCrimmon.
Dutton supreme in the air.
Dutton's leading, using his body against Henderson. Dutton in front. He's got strong hands. He's too good for Henderson. Hyatt in front.
Jackson scores from the square.
By Mackerel as he scooped it out to Jackson. Jackson's got time if he can get it. He beats one, he beats two, puts it on the boot, beats two players, and he's dobbed it straight through.
Donaghy snaps truly from 30 metres.
Whitford kicks the ball to Jackson, knocked away from him by Cochrane. Cochrane recovers, boot to ball, quickly up to the forward line, over the back of the pack. Marsh is leading, he's got support by Hill. Coming out Donaghy, he traps it nicely, swings around, hooks it in, bounces to the square once, twice, and he's got it straight through and he beat two of them. Well done, Ian Donaghy.
From the centre, and Jackson replies quickly for North.
On the ball now as he knocks it clearly out. Young's got it, he runs, kicks the ball high to centre forward. Who's going to take the mark? Nobody. It's punched away, hits the ground. Cochrane is there. So too is Jackson. Jackson's got first use of the ball. Held up by Cochrane. Good body play there by Thurlow. Knocked on by Maynard. Out to Hyatt. Hyatt to Jackson. Into the goal square. He runs in and bangs it straight through.
A courageous mark by Chris Whitford.
For the loose man, there shouldn't be too many of them out there, but there is. And a good mark taken by Whitford. He's played well.
Davies scores for Launceston.
Again, the ball knocked away by Hardstaff. Hill's there as well. Picked up by Peter Scott. The hand pass is going to come over towards Davies. Davies hooks it over the shoulder. Goal!
He looks for a handball.
Dutton marks strongly and goals from the kick.
Runs around Marsh and kicks it high. There, Dutton's there in front, clearly on his own. Bloom jumped into his back from behind and Dutton has taken the mark.
Championship quarter. And so it was yesterday in our grand final. Graham.
Yes, well, Launceston at the half-time break, I think, Ray, sensed that their best chance was in the area that had been picked up in the latter part of the second quarter. And I believe that they really realised that with Dutton and Ballinger and Donaghy, the key men on the forward line, that the idea was to kick the ball long down there and keep that pattern going that they established in the latter part of the quarter. Leading into half-time. I thought also a significant move was the entry of Stoward onto the ground, because Stoward was to prove one of the players to combat the dominance that the North smaller Rovers had displayed in the first half, in my opinion. I thought that also there was a big upsurge in the workload of players like Curran and, of course, Brand on the back line along with Lewis, formed a barrier there that North could never get through. And in the third quarter, it was a sensational quarter for Launceston. Dutton proved to be an absolute match winner. He just completely overpowered anything that North could offer in that area, marked with great assurity and gave enormous confidence to his teammates. And Launceston really lifted in the third quarter. They could sense that there was a chance to open up a big gap. And North really seemed unable to combat the great physical ability of Launceston to get the ball forward. Now, many of the players that had done well for North in that first quarter, notably the Ruck Rovers and Rovers, were to go out during the third quarter. And Launceston, with this enormous upsurge in confidence and great kick-getting that they got going in the third quarter. In fact, the stats for the quarter showed that Launceston had 64 kicks, 29 marks, to North Launceston's 33 kicks and 6 marks. So the statistics on the paper proved what was happening out on the ground, that there was no counter to Launceston's aerial supremacy, and with the great ability that the medium-sized players had picked up on, Launceston had all the answers, and they really went to town. Ballinger and Dutton, Donaghy, McCribbin, they had a birthday up in front, and they kicked goal after goal and rammed home a huge advantage by three-quarter time. 15-15, as you can see, to 9-9 meant that there was a difference of 7 goals, 42 points, and that certainly was a match-winning lead. And I'm sure that Kerry would have been telling his players at the three-quarter time break that there was to be no repeat of what had happened in the second semi.
You couldn't have asked more from your players in that third quarter, Kerry.
Oh, definitely not, Ray. That quarter virtually won us the game.
Yeah.
And I think at three-quarter time, I didn't have to say that much to the players, just to settle them down a little bit, because there was no way known that they were going to let happen what happened before. History wasn't going to repeat itself, and very rarely does in grand finals either, and they were that keen to go on and win it.
John, what were your thoughts at three-quarter time after that great burst in the third quarter, which probably deep down you thought, this is ours, isn't it? This is ours this year?
Well, I thought they would come back pretty strong in that third quarter, but after, as Kerry said, the experience of the second semi-final, in the back of our minds, I think that, we steadied and, we had things under control in that last quarter.
Was that pressure very fierce in the last quarter?
No, not really.
It just didn't appear to be. That's why I asked you the question.
No, I think they'd run their race by then.
Ray, I thought that one thing very notably worthy of mention was the umpiring yesterday. I thought that Heron and Fellows, especially during the first quarter and third quarter, when a lot of physical confrontations took place and the game could have easily got completely out of control, they displayed great qualities, Heron and Fellows, and I thought they did a marvellous job under pressure. There are times during the year, of course, where umpires come in for criticism because people have got their own interpretation of the rules, and that's healthy too. But really, it is necessary as well to congratulate these fellows for the job they do when they do a fine job, and most of the time they do an excellent job, but yesterday was a superb effort.
Kerry, we've just seen 2 or 3 instances there in the last couple of minutes there of the supreme aerial ability of Robert Dutton. Were you looking for moves from North in what way they could try to counter him? They didn't really have an area, did they?
Not really, Ray. The same applies to probably Scottsdale the week before. They had to put Roosendale back onto Robert.
Yeah.
Really, North Launceston didn't have anyone with that sort of strength. Yeah. They couldn't really put Evans. They couldn't really put Height because they are more of the Burt-type ruckman, the thinner-type players. And they ended up with Neil Maynard there. Had to shift him from full forward and put him back onto Robert. And I think even Flogger only knocked the ball once away from Robert. He's just too strong.
Was there a time in that last quarter that you were ever in doubt of winning the title?
Oh, I was always in doubt until that final siren went. I wasn't happy till that went.
Steve, what was your impression of the second half?
Oh, just they were too supreme in the air, just all over the ground. They played well as a team, and they just far too good, just too good on the day.
Graham, any other comment to make?
Well, I thought that Cheng did have his problems, but he did move Loon out, and he placed Henderson onto Donaghy on occasions to try and stem the flow that was coming from that area. But they were a little bit hamstrung with their, the things that they could have done. And once a team's got the roll on, like Launceston had yesterday, and really, North Launceston's whole game is based on the success of their medium-sized players, and those men have done the job for North all the year, and it was just unfortunate for North Launceston that at the time when they needed them most, that they couldn't get the kicks that they could do the damage with, and that was partly due, certainly, to the great ability of Launceston. And they were a good side, North, and they were beaten and really crushed by a far better side on the day. But they'll come back, and it's been a great season for both sides.
Well said. Let's check your statistics now with the goal kickers.
Well, the goal kickers, the champion full forward, Donaghy, marvellous contributor to football, kicked 5 goals, and Ballinger and Dutton. There's 13 goals between the key men on the forward line. It speaks for itself. And, of course, John McCribbin, who's really come of age as a footballer, kicked his 3 goals. And,
he's going to retire this year, he told me.
Well, that's unfortunate because McCribbin, John McCribbin, has been a bit of a character in football. There's no doubt about that. He's had his shortcomings, as everybody has. He's got a short fuse. But the bloke has matured, and I think it'd be unfortunate for himself and for football if he did give the game away. I think that, you have to go through a period in your life where you learn, and then you learn and take advantage of your experience and become a mature person. I think the McCribbin's in that area now, and he should go on. I thought that for North Launceston, Jackson, who's going to be a very good player in the future, kicked 3 wonderful goals. Ricky Young got 2, Whitford 2, Maynard 2, and also Mackerel, who played an excellent first half.
Better players?
The better players for Launceston, undoubtedly the best man on the ground by a mile was Dutton, and Davies, McCribbin, Curran, Donaghy, Woolley, Brand and Ballinger. And for the North Launceston side, the better players for them, Marsh, Elmer, Jackson, Young, Mackerel,
Shane Young, yes.
Shane Young, Mackerel and Evans, who I agree had to have a great duel with another promising player in Walsh.
Kerry, one final question, a very serious one. Your future with Launceston?
I coached for the last time yesterday, right?
Yes, I understood that. Your likely successor is in the studio here at the present time?
I don't know what'll happen next year. It's up to the club.
They couldn't possibly let him go, could they?
No, I don't think so.
Eh? And I refer to one Robert Major Dutton, who we'll be speaking to very, very shortly, as we look now at some of the edited highlights from the second half at York Park yesterday.
Kenny Jordan's about to come on again. Ball is kicked back into the wing. Whitford angles for the front. Knocked away by Harris. Woolly's got it. He gives it quickly to Cook. Cook handballs out to Scott. Scott stabs the ball into Dutton, who's there, and beautifully shepherded behind by Donachie. Knocked away by Loon. Knocked away by Henderson. Clearly into the arms of Curran. A set shot from Curran. He kicks out a beautiful mark. Falling back. Is it McCrimmon? So Northern a little bit of trouble. Loon limping. Brett Hughes off limping. Now Dutton has a shot, but it's going to blow across the front of the goal, out the front of the square. Uncontested Ballinger. He's looking for Donachie, but he's going to go long. He's going to put it in the air, and there's plenty of chance for a mark. One grab, two grabs, and the umpire is going to pay it, is he? Yes, he is. Must have been something happened when Lewis was on the bottom of the pack. Lewis kicks to the forward line, and here is Dutton again. Dutton lining up now. He's had a number of shots and he's missed again. But this time it falls short on the pack. Off hands. Quickly a chip over the top. And that was Curran, I think. No, it's Francis Woolley. Coming out again quickly is Scott. A long handball to Davies. He's got time to run 10 yards. He runs that. He bangs the ball into full forward. From behind, Donachie off hands, Ballinger. And he puts it on the left foot. And there's a goal. North have been too intent on undisciplined footballers. Hill comes out about his second touch. Jackson amongst the missing. He's got the ball and he kicks the ball deep into the forward line. From behind, could it be Hyatt? He's got one, he's got two grabs. Davies has the ball high into the goal square. Off hands, Dutton. Lewis into it. Now it's going to be Jackson with the kick. Looks for a lead. Jackson's going to go high and long. It's given plenty of air right in the goal square. Off hands quickly. Harris knocks it in front of himself. Young is diving in the ball. He's got the chance. A left foot screw back over his shoulder. Might have just floated to the left. No, it's got through. Well done. Donachie decides to go long. He's kicking in a bit of a breeze. Guess who's back there? Dutton. 15-metre penalty against the Robins, against Jordan, who's on the mark. And Woolley kicks the ball into the goal square. Dutton pushes his opponent out. Elmore was in there, so too is Ballinger. Out quickly to Dutton, he's under pressure. A handball of Ballinger running past, lining up. Easy as you like, and through it goes. It covers well, he chips it to the wing. Harper's there, Davies in a beautiful mark, Darren Davies. He does exactly that. A push out by Marsh, but he's got the ball. He's under pressure here from Thurlow. He breaks the tackle. One bounce by Marsh. He's got plenty of players to give it to. He runs another 10. He bangs it towards goal on the way long, and he's got the goal home.
Good back.
Kerry, does it make up for the bit of disappointment of last year?
It makes up for everything.
Yes.
Today's the only day that counts, and we won her.
How does it feel now from a club point of view? Did all what went on bring the boys really close together?
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Be a big help to you in motivation, which is important.
I didn't even use that today.
You didn't?
Didn't need to. The players knew what they had to do. We had a job to do, and we went out and did it.
You'd be very pleased from a coach's point of view with the discipline that your guys showed out on the ground.
Launceston have always been said, no discipline, you know, a talented side, champion team, or a team of champions. We've now proved we're a champion team.
You must have been very proud because they made one aim, that was the ball, and they took everything that was thrown at them,
yes.
And you couldn't ask for anything more.
Couldn't ask for anything else.
You've been pleased with the finals build up? Even
yeah, playing those games in the finals did us the world of good.
Okay, I'll let you get back to some. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's a great moment for a coach when his side wins a premiership, and it's a great moment for the players. And that was Kerry immediately after the game. And, of course, he's been in the studio today after 24 hours of respite, or after 24 hours from the previous game. We won't worry about the rest, but he's still very, very happy, and we do thank you for coming to the studio today. Well, to make a couple of presentations in and around the grand final yesterday, it's once again welcome back to Stephen Hortle, who's the president of the NTFA 200 Club.
Thanks, Ray. First of all, on behalf of the 200 Club, I'd like to thank everyone for turning up yesterday, and also to you, Kerry, congratulations, a top team effort. You're the better team throughout the year. You proved yesterday that you could win the game under circumstances that we hope are finished, and congratulations from me and from everyone. You really deserved it. The other one, we have several to give away. Yesterday, the 200 Club gave away a watch, and that was won by Catherine Bean of Mowbray. So that has been claimed, folks. Thanks very much for those that kept their coupons and participated. The next one I'd like to give away is a portrait of the Heck Smith medalist, Stephen Howe. Stephen, if you'd like to come forward.
There we are.
Stephen, on behalf of the 200 Club, NTFA 200 Club, I'd like to thank you for coming along this morning and accepting this.
You're a worthy winner, and I hope that this is a memory of your great year in 1985. And on behalf of the 200 Club and our sponsors in the Crown Hotel, Bill and Eric, thanks very much.
Thanks very much. I'd like to thank Steve for this beautiful portrait, the Crown Hotel as well, and Channel 9 for everything they've done. Thanks very much.
Good on you, Steve. Looks like being a free lunch down at the Crown Hotel tomorrow there, Steve, doesn't it?
So, yes.
Another big award. A big award to a big player with a big heart.
And a big bloke alongside me. This one is sponsored by Lifesavers Nestles. It's for the player that the 200 Club thought yesterday was the most serviceable. It also turned out that he was obviously best on the ground. Robert Dutton, on behalf of the 200 Club, congratulations, big fella.
Thanks very much, Steve. I'd like to thank the 200 Club, Steve, and all my teammates. Without them, there's just no way we could win this, and tremendous. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Robert.
Be there in a sec. Now we've got the boy here who... Come over here, Paul. Just behind us there. Paul Country Ellis. Well, I don't like to call him Country, but we all like to know him as Paul. He's been a good friend of ours here for many, many years. And Paul, it was your last game yesterday?
Certainly was, Ray, yes, and a great way to finish it
I
up.
would say 250th game, a premiership, and Paul's got the premiership cup. Just hold up for the boys who are out the back up there having a quiet drink out there. Good on you, Paul. Kerry, would you like to come in for a moment? This is not part of anything, unrehearsed at all. Would you like to accept that cup from Paul for all the help that you've been to him throughout the year?
I don't know how I've put up with him for the last couple of years.
Anyway, mate, congratulations to everybody out there, all the Blue supporters, and enjoy that barbecue today. And we've got another little boy in the background here. Here he is in here. Can we get him there, fellas? Clayton Miller. There you are, Clayton. Paul will give you the cup there. That's the Blues mascot who's done such a tremendous amount of work for you. And there he is. He's up here too with his dad and everybody else. And best of luck to the Blues. Good luck to you, Paul, Kerry, and all the boys, and you too, Robert. Just one question, Dad. Can we come over for a second? Yeah, he got his teeth out. I'd like to ask you a question. Best man on the ground yesterday, a magnificent final series, and best man on the ground in Hobart last year in the final against Clarence. How did you feel about the Roos being knocked off yesterday?
I was very disappointed for them. A couple of them rang me up this morning and they were very disappointed. I felt bad for them, but you know, you can't win them all, and it's just up to the...
Could I ask you which premiership gave you the most satisfaction?
Each year, each one gives you a new buzz, you know. It's impossible to compare premierships. This one's been tremendous, you know, and just hope we can keep on going.
Well, there's been many changes in your life this year, from the south to the north. Sold your business, entered the Royal Hotel down there in George Street. Next year?
Don't know, Ray. At the moment, I reckon you just wait for a big day on Monday at the pub. We'll be there.
Got a great day's coach. It might be a great coach next year, eh, Kerry?
Poor old Morrie's got to work, that's the trouble.
Thanks very much, Dad, and thanks for everything throughout the year, and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much, Ray.
I'd like to thank you all for joining me, and to you, Bud and Lou, please tell that big producer up there something for us down here. Thank you for Abbott and Costello.
Application to join a statewide football competition in 1986 in preference to Launceston has stunned most football followers in the north. During the strife-torn 85 season, NTFA Premiers Launceston looked certain to join the proposed league. One man disappointed by the Blues' exclusion is champion ruckman Robert Dutton.
I believe that Launceston had the facilities and the players necessary with just a small amount of recruiting to become a very good force in the statewide competition.
What does this mean to your own career?
Personally, it sort of puts me at the crossroads a little bit, you know, on a decision whether to go and change your allegiance completely to another club, or whether to play in a weekend NTFA competition, or just simply bow out, you know. It makes it very sort of hard. I believe how the team should have been picked possibly was run on an independent basis and have a Launceston Central and a Launceston West, and run by the NTFA or something similar, a body that could run independently of the clubs.
East Devonport forward and Union representative Chris Dell sees the possibility of playing for the state as the main incentive for top players.
Well, I think a lot of players would be interested in playing in the league. Still, we're not too sure just how it's going to be played, and so there's a fair few details up in the air, but a lot of the top players would be very interested in playing, I would say. That would make them...
As president.
He replaces Bill Luck, who resigned last week after one of the association's most turbulent seasons, with internal strife over sponsorship and problems associated with the statewide league. At last night's meeting, which lasted only 5 minutes, the committee voted unanimously to accept Mr Porter's nomination.
Well, I received an approach last Thursday, and of course I gave it some very serious consideration over the weekend, and finally made up my mind yesterday.
What do you see as the main priorities?
Well, of course, we've got the centenary of the association coming up next year, which is a priority in itself. Of course, this association has been in existence for 100 years next year, and the first priority is to make sure that next season goes off particularly well, and also the functions and the centenary final. We hope that those will be a great success as well.
David, the retiring President Bill Luck drew criticism from some quarters with the public stands that he made on issues. Are you going to follow in that vein or keep your opinions to the boardroom?
Well, I'll certainly be expressing opinions at committee level, and any views that are publicly expressed hopefully will be those of the committee.
The Deloraine Apex Club